Chapter 914, The Whole Truth. Chapter 914, The Whole Truth. Proofreader, Papa Tonks. Not leaving Zhuo Fan out of his sight, Shangguan Feixiong spoke with trembling eyes. Yifan, what's going on here? Why would the soaring sword be with you? We've suffered at another's ambush and now you have some explaining to do. Dad, you were ambushed. Shangguan Qingyang came to realize what those roars and noise from before were. It wasn't Shangguan clan's charge into the manor but from being massacred. Dad, what about our people? How many died? Shangguan Feixiong gnashed his teeth. There are many dead, but thankfully the disturbance here had Bailey Jingwei remove the barrier and we have now escaped total defeat. Shangguan Qingyang sighed, her worries eased, but also giving Zhuo Fan an incredulous look. Mr. Jiyu, why did you do this? So it wasn't Shangguan clan head's grand plan? Gauging the father and daughter's reactions, Bailey Jingwei's brow shook. Shangguan Feixiong looked at him like an idiot, his words condescending. They say the Prime Minister of Swordstar Empire is wise beyond anyone. Now I see how overstated it is. No matter how much I care about the divine sword, it's nothing but an item that needs a user to display its power. There's no way I'd ever risk myself and my clan's lives to get it. And even if we do get it, who's to wield it? Like Prime Minister said, it's a risky move with small chance of success and high risks. The brilliant Prime Minister can't see it either. The risk isn't worth it. Oh, I see, we've both fallen for it. Bailey Jingwei shuddered and muttered, tonight there was actually a third player on the board. We considered ourselves as big players, doing everything to advance towards our goals. This in turn made us blind to the strings attached to us, moving to another's whims, killing each other and paving his way to success. What a mistake. Not once did it occur to me that there may be another enemy than the Shangguan clan in play. Becoming another's pawn has turned into the biggest shame of my life. Both sides were now in the clear and their eyes focused on Zhuo Fan in shock and suspicion for the first time. Bailey Jingwei used a cold tone towards the highly esteemed Grandmaster Jiyu. Who are you? Who do you work for? Jiyu Yifan, an average, lone and roaming alchemist, at your service, ha ha ha. The flippancy ticked everyone off. These guys were strong, big shots of their own lands, but they were nothing but a bloody amusement for some whelp. They were sure to become laughingstock. These men had been so used to being in charge, on their high horse, they could disregard anything but the gross lack of disrespect. Bailey Jingwei and the Shangguan clan regarded Zhuo Fan with bloodthirst, wishing nothing more than tear him limb from limb. Zhuo Fan was now public enemy number one, garnering all their hatred. Oh, except Shangguan Qingyang, who looked worried sick. She didn't know Zhuo Fan had a way out ready and was torn in two. Zhuo Fan looked unfazed by all the animosity he collected, jeering and actually enjoying the other's ill will that only seemed to grow with each of his demeaning actions. He's surrounded by experts on all sides yet has the time to gloat. This would not stand, especially not to Shangguan Feixiong, the step-uncle, Jiyu Yifan. I always thought this was a trap. Bailey Jingwei elaborated, but it was you all along. You made a fake map so you could trap us. Ha ha ha, of a sort. Though not the entire truth. Zhuo Fan gave a wide smile, droning on, giving you the real one wouldn't have made a difference, not when the wise Prime Minister Bailey saw through it all and would place the trap accordingly. All I did was choose the location. Bailey Jingwei shuddered. You knew everything? Since when? Pill King Convention. Overconfident in the fact he was about to slip away, Zhuo Fan found no harm in gloating with an evil smirk. It was painfully obvious to me what you were intending when and how you held the Pill King Convention. It was all within my estimations when you instigated Shangguan Yulin to help you. Shangguan Yulin was a traitor. Shangguan Feixiong and Shangguan Qingyang winced. Their own kin had sold them out to their enemy. They both looked at Zhuo Fan in bewilderment. Only Bailey Jingwei's sudden reaction confirmed Zhuo Fan's words. Bailey Jingwei squinted, shocked but hiding it well. Since you knew, then you pulled all the strings till today. Heavily wounded and in his crater, Shangguan Yulin spat blood and was on the verge of tears. Prime Minister sir, you sure know how to ruin your own people. You're basically admitting to Shangguan Feixiong that I'm a traitor. How am I to get back to Eastern lands now? How am I to continue to be your spy? Regardless of his random personal rants, ever since Zhuo Fan revealed the whole unvarnished truth, whether Shangguan Feixiong believed it or not, He himself began to doubt his value as a spy. Bailey Jingwei proved it by giving him up without a second thought. Ha ha ha, give the smart prime minister a prize. You guessed it in one try. Zhuo Fan smiled. Bailey Jingwei clenched his fists as anger boiled within his breast. Humph, Grandmaster Ji, are you patronizing me or being snarky? It's a first for me, being a genius in retrospect. Isn't that better than being aimless till the end? Ha ha ha, Zhuo Fan quirked a taunting eyebrow. Bailey Jingwei grimaced at the cheap shot, with some even hearing his gritting teeth. Anyone would be pissed being mocked like Zhuo Fan was doing. Bailey Jingwei knew he was no great cultivator in the Swordstar Empire. His only pride lay in his sharp mind, his perfect policies and flawless stratagems. Zhuo Fan proved to him now that all that confidence was only worth insults to the other. It was his first time feeling so much shame and anger. He was the one who always toyed with others, and finding himself on the other end of the string was simply unbearable. Shangguan Feiyun glared at Zhuo Fan as he demanded, "So you're the one that had me waiting dumbly all night?" "Ha ha ha, Sword King Feiyun, you got the wrong guy there." Zhuo Fan shrugged and mocked as he pointed at the bloody Shangguan Yulin in his hole. "You have to take it up to the real culprit. He's the one who passed the info, so ask him. If not for his selfishness, wanting to use you to kill another, the original plan wouldn't have suffered changes and Sword King Feiyun wouldn't have been separated. Ha ha ha." Shangguan Feiyun shuddered and cursed, "Rotten bastard, only knows how to mess it up like his mother. You ruined my plan and death's too easy for you." Shangguan Yulin's heart sank, shaking from fear and cursing inside. How the hell does Jiu Yifan know my affairs? Was he watching me all along? Zhuo Fan smirked, "Good disciple, my plan worked all thanks to you, ha ha ha. Old sicko." With the recognition of the words came terror and another spurting of blood. How could I be so blind? That old sicko that tormented him for so long, the same one that came and went like the wind, was no other than Zhuo Fan next door. That's why he could slip in and out like that. He was right next to me. Shangguan Yulin felt like the victim here, his mind wounded by the shocking truth. His body recoiled as well, forced to spit blood on and on. Chapter 9:15, Big Dipper Flinging Array. Chapter 9:15, Big Dipper Flinging Array. Proofreader, Papa Tonks. The truth of being tortured and toyed with by the same person he hated and despised the most made this young master Shangguan Yulin more humiliated than anything in the world. He couldn't budge from the serious injuries on his body, but that did not stop him from shivering in regret as tears of shame streaked down his face. Fueled by the bitter resentment his heart was now saturated with, all directed at the sicko Zhuo Fan pretended to be. Even the poorest schmuck out there had his own self respect. Even the frailest of bugs had their own limits. He could accept being a slave to some demonic expert, since he was weaker, but Zhuo Fan was his peer with whom he never saw eye to eye. Knowing that this peer was stronger, the shock to his mind made him feel sick. He was the young master of the best clan in Eastern Land. How dare he be shamed by some nasty scum of society? Thus, if he knew from the start the sicko who enslaved him was Zhuo Fan, he'd never have caved in until death, or made sure to plot from the shadows against him. The fear he always felt towards the sicko was due to not knowing anything about him. It was why Zhuo Fan used him by hiding his real face. The more Shangguan Yulin was spasming and sobbing in regret, the more Zhuo Fan found his course of action the right one. A mastermind should have his own style, to build up an air of mystery and strength. Honesty and coming clean helped no one with intimidation and forcing others to capitulate into being used. The others saw Shangguan Yulin's creepy movements and felt off. What's wrong with him? What's the problem? It's not like he's the only one the punk got. We've all been duped. To cry over something like this goes to show your mind is weak. Bailey Jingwei could somewhat relate to Shangguan Yulin's pain. It was a royal and noble humiliation. In their blood, none of the other spectators could feel it. Only by being toyed to such an extent by a mere boy would one come to understand this deep shame. It was no different from a beggar spitting on the face of an emperor in broad daylight. Nothing could wash it away, not even killing all the people here. Bailey Jingwei squinted and focused his cold gaze on Zhuo Fan, while the fake report came from Shangguan Yulin's misguided interests. It's all due to Mr. Gu. Ha ha ha, oh, thank you, but all I did was threaten him a little, just enough to want to get rid of me and thus complicating things. Though everything is just as I speculated, and as I wanted it. Zhuo Fan beamed. Prime Minister sir, is, in fact, right when you say it's due to me. Shangguan Yulin, in his hole, bawled harder. Zhuo Fan has struck another mighty blow to his feeble psyche. He only wanted to kill Zhuo Fan, but he played right into the guy's hand, helping instead. It was the harshest blow an egomaniac could receive. Scared and terrified, all that work I put in it went in another's favor. Oh, my poor ego, it's not just bruised, but in pieces. Shangguan Yulin howled, the tears flowing unabated as he cried like a baby. It was so pitiful that even the hatred others felt for him was slowly turning into anger at this guy for wallowing in sorrow at his wretched fate. Even Shangguan Feiyun felt as such towards this spy nephew of his. This punk is no big player. Look at him, how can he climb on to the glorious seat as Lord of Eastern Lands? Mr. Jiu sure played a great hand. I shall never forget this and admire your feat. Bailey Jingwei understood everything and actually attached more value to Zhuo Fan. Only this time, it was born out of weariness and not cherishing. Anyone that could make Bailey Jingwei dance to his tune was not to be trifled with. Bailey Jingwei looked around to see he had no other helpers and signaled the guards to surround Zhuo Fan. Mr. Gu is brilliant and has directed the play in the best possible way for your benefit. This leads me to believe you have left yourself an exit, right? Ha ha ha, Prime Minister Sir Shaw is clever. Since you know, why waste time talking and telling the men to surround me? Knowing something and doing what's necessary are different things. There is also the matter of contingency. The two looked each other in the eye and burst out laughing. Zhuo Fan was sneering while Bailey Jingwei had a cold laugh. Seeing the two at odds, only seeing each other as worthy adversaries, left Shangguan Feixiong and the mighty venerables shunned and disregarded. Their faces twitched, feeling their self-respect taking a blow alongside Shangguan Yulin. Come on, can't you at least glance here as well? We're also experts of Eastern Lands, Shangguan clan. We're starting to feel bad with you ignoring us like that. Though who the hell cared about some 4 old bags of bones? Not them too, and certainly not Shangguan Feiyun. They didn't have the soaring sword, now did they? All eyes were only focused on one person, Zhuo Fan. They were weary and tense for any sudden moves by the Grandmaster Jiu who toyed with them all night. How was he going to get away? How was he going to give so many great experts the slip? Why was he so confident he could? The unknown always had a knack of putting everyone on edge, preying on their dark imagination. Shangguan Qingyan's pretty eyes regarded the know-it-all and disparaging Zhuo Fan with shock. She found him a total stranger, a stranger that made her heart race and her face red. It went beyond anything she ever thought possible. The frail and disregarded average radiant stage alchemist that once saved her turned out to be a control freak and an ungodly hero. Zhuo Fan's attitude was one of dominance, a stark contrast from her father's air of righteousness, but the vibe of one that ruled. Zhuo Fan's haughty style was a killer for girls like her, drawing her deeper into his web. For now, though, her obsessive eyes went unnoticed to Zhuo Fan. Especially since hundreds of other eyes were also watching him. Zhuo Fan looked around, then settled on Bailey Jingwei. Prime Minister Sir, my script is set the moment it plays. There's no contingency. Dub. With the sharp yell, Zhuo Fan's hand weaved into a sign tilde. A ripple spread from his feet and the Big Dipper shone bright from high in the sky. A blinding light was cast down from one of the stars right where Zhuo Fan was standing, holding him safe within. Everyone cried out in shock and stepped back in fear and weariness. That's the ancient star array. It should have been lost ages ago. Just how? An aged voice sounded. You know this array? Bailey Jingwei shook and turned to one of the 10 11th grade array grandmasters he brought from the imperial capital. He shouted in anxiety, what does it do? Watching the bright light curtain with stunned eyes, the man's gaze also held obsession. He only reacted when Bailey Jingwei shouted at him, Prime Minister, there are many star arrays with varying effects. It is only my first time seeing such a marvel. As for what it does or what is for, I do not know. Then why talk so much? The always respectful Bailey Jingwei lost his temper and cursed. Zhuo Fan smiled behind the curtain of light. Prime Minister Sir, you should watch your temper. He doesn't know but I do. Since it's the end, I don't see any harm in sharing with you this star array, the Big Dipper flinging array. It. Zhuo Fan grinned, looking mighty smug. Teleportation. A teleportation array? Bailey Jingwei jerked and barked orders. Stop him now. Don't let him get away. Yes, sir. The men acted but Zhuo Fan shook his head. It's too late for that. This star teleportation array is focused on speed. Once it's activated, it's instantaneous. Even Genesis stage experts can't reach its speed. I only have to shift my fingers and... Zhuo Fan smirked as his hands moved and faded out. Bailey Jingwei's eyebrows rose and clenched his fists in hatred. Chapter 916, Hostage. Chapter 916, Hostage. Proofreader. Papatonks. Tilda. A power surge spread with the moonlight curtain as its source. Hiding behind it was Zhuo Fan's fading smug and mocking grin at Bailey Jingwei. No amount of effort, nor speed, on the guard's part, even from Genesis experts, helped stop Zhuo Fan from leaving. Bailey Jingwei bit his lip till it bled. He had been toyed with by some mystery punk that came out of nowhere to the point of extreme humiliation. He lost it all tonight, both the chance of wiping out Shangguan clan's best and the very thing he protected, the soaring sword. How was he going to explain that to the patriarch? To make matters worse for our poor imperial prime minister, his prized title of being sagely statesman had just taken a blow. Not to forget, his credibility in patriarch's eyes was now questionable over the course of one short night. His bright and promising career had taken a most dark and cruel turn. As he was gnashing his teeth and boiling in rage, Dan Qingshan sported a rather peculiar smile, giving a big nod to Zhuo Fan in his mind. Boy, cheers on your success and safe escape. I'm sure we'll meet again someday, ha ha ha. Whoosh. A figure came out of nowhere and flashed through them. It aimed for Shangguan Qingyan's fair and delicate neck, yanking it forward. The lady cried at the suddenness, still absorbed in Zhuo Fan's performance. The pressure put a strain on her breath and her face turned red as she coughed for any bit of air. What do you think you're doing, Shangguan Feiyun? A peak Genesis expert has so little shame as to lay his hand on a child. Shangguan Feixiong noticed his daughter was in trouble and it was no one else's doing but her uncle he hated. If you won't do it for your niece, at least for status. Fight me if you want to, but leave Younger alone. Shangguan Feiyun huffed. Old coot, you know as well as I just how apart we are in strength. I've no interest in fighting you. I am one of the 9 sword kings after all. Her being kin aside, touching her, an ethereal stage cultivator, is beneath me. Alas, the circumstances have changed. Sorry, niece. Shangguan Qingyang turned a cold face towards where Zhuo Fan had vanished. Jiyu Yifan, listen up. Leave the soaring sword and I'll let you go. Don't, and this girl gets it. Zhuo Fan's signs paused, his face betraying emotion. Bailey Jingwei lit up and signaled his guards to stop before forcing Jiyu Yifan to leave for good. It was imperative to get him to stay, then use the girl to get the soaring sword back. From what he'd seen, the two looked close. On top of that, the reports showed she quite cared for Jiyu Yifan, to the point of coming clean with her own dad's plan of using him. This wasn't a result of a mere friendship. There had to be something going on between the two. Jiyu Yifan had started his plan with the sole thought of using Shangguan clan for his own goals, but whenever people were involved, anything could happen. Maybe all those walks through town touched the guy's heart. Bailey Jingwei and Shangguan Feiyun thought of using the girl as a bargaining chip on a simple maybe. Bailey Jingwei looked hard at Shangguan Feiyun and knew Sword King Feiyun didn't just use his fist, but was cautious and bold when required. The Prime Minister understood how this man became a Sword King. There was no way Patriarch would just accept anyone with a bit of strength. I've gotten too caught up in everything and lost my composure. Sword King Feiyun was actually much more devious, finding the right trail among thousands to pursue victory. A true man of ambition. Bailey Jingwei praised him, his eyes focused on Zhuo Fan and eager for a response. Shangguan Feixiong's side was tense, filled with bloodthirst. Yanger's life is in your hands. I don't care what you are, Jiyu Yifan, but Yanger has been good to you all these days. Even a cold stone heart will sport a crack. Shangguan Qingyang was also desperate to know his reply, holding hope deep in her eyes. But unlike the rest, she knew it was highly unlikely Zhuo Fan would just hand over the soaring sword for her. All she hoped was to know Zhuo Fan's feelings, even if it was refusal out of helplessness. She was content with Zhuo Fan showing just an inkling of want in saving her. Alas, before all those tense and eager looks, Zhuo Fan smirked. Sword King Feiyun, are you touched in the head or something? You expect to blackmail me with Shangguan Feixiong's daughter? Are you sure about that? Everyone sighed, realizing she was not enough to force the guy's hand. Shangguan Feixiong shook in rage. A cold stone bastard like him should just die. Shangguan Qingyang looked forlorn at the blatant rejection. This is the real Mr. Jiyu, cruel and callous. Jiyu Yifan, people aren't plants, they are governed by feelings. Shangguan Feiyun's eyes flashed as he probed, but Shuo Fan laughed in his face. Good one, but has the Sword King ever heard that love takes time? I've barely known the girl for a month and I didn't even like her from the start, only thinking of using Shangguan clansmen for myself. How can such a shady goal lead to love? Even if some did bud, it'll only be faint and flat. Zhuo Fan gave a nasty grin to Shangguan Qingyang. Girlie, I told you staying won't do you any good. Didn't I urge you to leave? Shangguan Qingyang nodded. There you have it. I've already showed compassion but you chose death. My hands are clean. Zhuo Fan turned to Shangguan Feiyun, laughing. Young people have no sense of propriety, stubbornly willing to pay any price. That's why they should see more, though some get to see many times while others just once, just like Miss Shangguan here. Though experiencing ending your own niece ought be a one-time thing too. Make sure to relish it, Sword King Feiyun, ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan was totally uncaring, his laughter filled with derision as he resumed making signs and his body faded some more. Shangguan Feiyun grimaced at Zhuo Fan's brutal response. Her life in his hands held no importance to him. He had no remorse at all about just running away, and then he patronized him with killing his own kin. This was not just about staining his name, his mind would not get over it. Thus his grip on the fair neck eased. Zhuo Fan eased a breath. Reverse psychology saved her. Bailey Jingwei saw through it all and shouted, "Kill her, Sword King Feiyun." What? He's only taunting you. He wouldn't have said all that if he didn't care at all. He is taunting you into letting go. Bailey Jingwei felt good finally getting a grasp of Zhuo Fan's intent and shouted at the light curtain, "Jiyu Yifan, leave and life leaves her. Just try it." Shangguan Feiyun's grip on Shangguan Qingyan's neck tightened, laughing, "I get it now. Jiyu Yifan, so you do want to save her. Then leave the sword and we won't make it hard on you. You'll both leave safely." Shangguan Qingyang was choking again, but Bailey Jingwei's explanation made her heart skip a beat as it validated her hopes. It meant Zhuo Fan did care and wanted to save her. Just that he didn't show it, ha ha ha. Mr. Jiyu is so callous that he is ruthless even when saving another. But this extreme coldness hides emotions. Mr. Jiyu, just who are you? As her face paled from the lack of air and tears fell down, she was actually smiling, a smile free of regret. A shame I won't ever get the chance to find out. Sensing her life ebbing, Shangguan Feisheng was panicking. He couldn't even act out for fear of leading to her death. They were at an impasse. Zhuo Fan's eyes grew colder, his hands ready to make the last sign and leave. He didn't want to be like Shangguan Feisheng and let emotions rule his actions. But he could see the problem. Bailey Jingwei's side had Shangguan Qingyang as hostage because he had the soaring sword. Once he was gone, Shangguan Qingyang would lose her value, while handing the sword would only remove any restraint they had. They would go after his life and he would die along with the Shangguan clan. Bailey Jingwei was using Shangguan Qingyang to get the sword and control the Shangguan experts. Zhuo Fan smirked and was about to leave. It was then a childish voice sounded, "Auntie." Chapter 917, Scarlet Fist. Chapter 917, Scarlet Fist. Proofreader, Papatonks. Shuddering, Zhuo Fan signs stopped and gasped in a low tone, "Young Sanzi, what is he doing here and not at our meeting place?" Tilda. Even as the power was gathering and the gaudy moonlight shone, Zhuo Fan was frozen behind it, watching in shock. Now his foolproof plan was in ruins. The rest heard the childish voice as well and looked in its direction with surprise. Where did the kid come from? "Auntie." The weeping sounds were followed by a red and small figure, sniffing and running for Shangguan Qingyang. As he staggered and stumbled in his frantic rush, the locket on his neck dazzled in the moonlight. Zhuo Fan was floored at young Sanzi's sudden appearance. Feeling restless the more he was acting like a real and frail child. He knew young Sanzi was doing it for a reason, but with all the Genesis stage experts around, even a Chilean's son would find himself overwhelmed fast. Zhuo Fan's heart froze, his attention fixed on his cute figure as sweat trickled down his brow. "Young Sanzi, don't be rash, don't be rash." His prayer didn't reach young Sanzi as the child ran under everyone's gaze to Shangguan Feiyun and started waving his wee fists around. "Meanie, let my auntie go. Run, young Sanzi." Shangguan Qingyang panicked and forced herself to shout despite the grip on her neck. She cared too much about him. Jiyu Santong wasn't just half faking it, making sure his punches were that of a child. Shangguan Feiyun was blissfully oblivious of the monster lurking beneath that adorable facade. His eyes lit up and hoisted him. Ha ha ha, I heard you had a son, Jiyu Yifan. This must be the twerp. Now I have your son as well. You might not care about the girl, but that can't go the same for your son. Zhuo Fan winced, his fist clenching as he looked worried at young Sanzi. You shouldn't have come, young Sanzi. Meanie, let my auntie go. Jiyu Santong was still feisty even as Shangguan Feiyun held him in the air, waving his hands and feet at him, but they didn't even make an impact. It was all so funny to Shangguan Feiyun. Jiyu Yifan, I'll count to 3. So you keep that sword and I won't kill the girl, but instead your son. You think about that. Shangguan Feiyun, you rotten bastard, you call yourself a Genesis stage expert by hitting a 7-year-old child. Shangguan Qingyang raved despite her heavy breathing in his clutches. Shangguan Feiyun ignored her rants, only staring at Zhuo Fan with a dark look. 3. Zhuo Fan's face shook, stuck in indecision too. Shangguan Feiyun called out again, the bloodthirst in his eyes thicker. Zhuo Fan clenched his fists, sweating as he watched young Sanzi in worry. Bailey Jingwei mocked seeing him unmoving. Grandmaster Jiyu, are you that empty inside? You said you didn't know the girl for long to care, but now it's your own son. Are you going to say he hasn't been around for long either? Humph, what a father you are, caring more about a dead object than your own flesh and blood. Unlike you, your son is so touching, being around the girl as long as you have yet to see how attached he's grown. Are you sure you're even related? How come you're so different? Ha ha ha. Bailey Jingwei mocked and laughed at his expense, even though it was all true. Zhuo Fan and young Sanzi were not related. It actually went beyond blood relation. Zhuo Fan's hesitation stemmed from not knowing how to play along young Sanzi's act and save him. Saving was only possible if he timed it right, especially with young Sanzi's strength, so he waited for the right moment for the father and son to act one. Shangguan Feiyun finished, but Zhuo Fan didn't budge, which made him shout, what a heartless father, not even caring about his own son's fate. Then allow me to help you by removing this bastard. Bang! A loud sound broke his rant, followed by a sharp pain to his chest. He spat blood and was sent flying, letting the hostages slip free. The mighty power surge spread out and kicked up a cloud of dust as it leveled everything in 5 kilometers. Though with everyone being Genesis stage experts, there was no fear of any life being harmed when the surge hit. As the dust settled, Shangguan Feiyun was revealed to be bleeding from the mouth and looking in shock. How? The child? The others were just as shocked as he was. How can a child harm Sword King Feiyun? That's impossible. Jiyu Santong panted, his young body covered in a red glow, still in a punching stance. He looked to be looking at Shangguan Feiyun with equal shock, since it was his first time against a Genesis stage expert, and a top one at that in the form of a Sword King. He went all out despite that and the fact it was a flawless sneak attack. His almighty Qilin power proved to fall short, as it only gave Shangguan Feiyun a flesh wound. This never happened before, ever. It then dawned on him Zhuo Fan's concern about Flying Cloud City being packed with Genesis experts and just how dangerous it was. There was no room for them to punch through. Like always, young Sanzi. As everyone was riveted in shock by the wee child, a shout reached their ears. A ripple echoed around young Sanzi's area as Zhuo Fan behind his curtain of light showed a golden right eye. Shift. Young Sanzi knew his enemy was beyond tough and let go of any intent of following up, choosing to grab the still stunned Shangguan Qingyang with a rare hard face. Auntie, relax and let it come. Dad'll save us. Shangguan Qingyang was still baffled, but seeing such a serious look on the 7-year-old's face made her bob her head in reflex. Bastard, you're going to pay for that. The air shimmered as Shangguan Feiyun unleashed the soaring sword art. In his rage the world shifted as a huge sword came down on the two, unleashing its dreadful power and robbing everyone's breath away. It was unclear how a Chilin's tough body would fare against such a grievous strike, but one thing was sure, there would be nothing left of Shangguan Qingyang afterward. Shangguan Feiyun cried out in pain. Shangguan Feiyun, how can a Genesis cultivator kill a child and an ethereal stage girl? What will the lands think of you? You call that a child? That's no child but a monster. Have you ever seen a child with such brutal strength? He made me bleed with a punch. There's no way that's normal even for a sneak attack. Shangguan Feiyun snapped back and silenced Shangguan Feiyun with his retort. Now he waited in anxiety as to what would follow. Zhuo Fan was the most worried of them all. He had to strain himself and give his all in his divine eye of the void, working faster than Shangguan Feiyun's sword. He had to. Young Sanzi. Zhuo Fan's eyes grew bloodshot as he screamed in his mind. As he forced himself to jumpstart the skill, his eye was bleeding, but none of this mattered as his gaze was fixed on Jiyu Santong and the space around him began to move. The huge sword was mere hairs away, ready to take their lives as well. Who was faster among Shangguan Qingyang and Zhuo Fan determined young Sanzi and Shangguan Qingyan's fate. Chapter 918, Young Sanzi. Chapter 918, Young Sanzi. Proofreader. Papatonks. Whoosh. The tearing in space was clear in everyone's ears. As the sword was just a meter away from taking their lives, the divine eye of the void warped the space beneath it, working its best to save them. Instead, Shangguan Feiyun and Zhuo Fan acted from different sides on the same target, one to kill and one to save, yet both giving their all. It was in this strained contest that Zhuo Fan began to show signs of coming up short. Killing always came easier than saving, even as shift and soaring sword art were exerted on the two at the same time. The sword came from Shangguan Feiyun and it didn't need to even touch them to cause tremendous pain and harm. Jiyu Santong would live through it with his sacred beast power, but Shangguan Qingyang was too weak here, not even in the Shangguan Qingyang, and was up against a peak Genesis expert's ultimate skill. Even a glancing blow was enough to render her broken in body and mind. Jiyu Santong understood this and noticed how Zhuo Fan was falling behind. He focused and pulled Shangguan Qingyang behind him. With a stomp, his body shot for the obliterating sword attack with no remorse. Young Sanzi, Zhuo Fan and Shangguan Qingyang cried out, but Jiyu Santong's mind was set, punching at the huge sword with his fist wrapped in scarlet. I am the invincible scamp Jiyu Santong. I have never known defeat and no puny sword energy can harm the likes of me. To the eyes of any onlooker, he was no whelp, no child wet behind his ears, but a brave hero unflinching in the face of death and welcoming with open arms. A pity he was up against one of the 9 sword kings, Shangguan Feiyun. He might have held his own against any other Genesis stage expert, but not against Shangguan Feiyun. The sword went through Jiyu Santong's arm with a muffled sound, going after Shangguan Qingyang. His challenging declaration came to a stop, forced to spat crimson blood. His rosy complexion turned deathly white as his frail body swayed in the wind and fell backward, but his fist had managed to slow the sword for less than a second, something anyone would disregard, but it held utmost importance in a crisis such as this. The sword finally grew slower than Zhuo Fan's divine eye of the void. Whoosh tilde. Shangguan Qingyang vanished in an instant, now appearing next to Zhuo Fan, behind the glowing curtain of light. The next moment, the sword crossed the now empty space and struck the crowd with a mighty boom. The howls and cries pierced the sky as anything in 50 kilometers was turned to rubble. The Genesis stage experts standing there were the ones to suffer for it, with more than 30 dead. It was testament to Shangguan Feiyun's power. Everyone was shocked inside at the outcome, not at Shangguan Feiyun's strength, but at Zhuo Fan's skill, able to save someone from right under Sword King Feiyun's nose. Shangguan Feixiong noticed his daughter was safe and eased a breath he forgot he was holding. He felt conflicted now about Zhuo Fan, torn between gratitude and hatred, but admired him nonetheless. The boy can do the impossible, unflinching as the world is collapsing on him. Just who is he? Zhuo Fan cared not about others' reactions, his right eye flashing once more. He saved Shangguan Qingyang, but now he was staring at Jiyu Santong as he floated there. However, in a fight between experts, using one skill might not work a second time. Someone darted and grabbed Jiyu Santong's neck. The man flicked his hand and cancelled the shift. The golden glow in Zhuo Fan's right eye faded and looked up with hatred and clenched fists. Shangguan Feiyun, Jiyu Yifan, so you're not just an unknown 11th grade alchemist but also in possession of some weird skills. Shangguan Feiyun dangled Jiyu Santong in front, splattering the blood flowing for young Sanzi everywhere. One is a freak and the other is a monster. You two sure opened my eyes wide today. The old man is crafty and shifty while the young son wields savage power. That punch really hurt and I lost myself there and almost killed them. How lucky your son is so capable in stopping my sword and still come out alive. But try anything else now and I'll snap his neck like a toothpick. Zhuo Fan's heart sank. Shangguan Qingyang cried, young Sanzi. She turned to Zhuo Fan, Jiyu Yifan, you have to help him. Just give up the dead sword. He's your son. Yeah, Give it up. Nothing can come close to the importance of your son's life, right? Ha ha ha, Shangguan Qingyang mocked while holding young Sanzi as blood flowed from the ruined arm. Young Sanzi's condition was growing worse by the second others were feeling for him. Such a monstrous strength, but all in the body of a little child. His act of sacrifice earlier only made him more admirable. If it were anyone else holding Jiyu Santong, some of them might even lend a hand. What kind of man are you, bastard, to pick on a child? Zhuo Fan hesitated as Jiyu Santong's grew weaker. But then the child strained to look at his father, giving him a look and a smile. He then closed his eyes, at peace with his fate. Zhuo Fan's brow shook, his fists clenched. But ultimately he let it all go. He grabbed Shangguan Qingyan's shoulder and made the last sign, we're leaving. What? In Shangguan Qingyan's moment of anxiety, worry and shock, the starlight shone brighter and the two faded away, followed by the vanishing of the curtain of light. Everyone gasped, even Bailey Jingwei. Is Jiyu Yifan so cruel? Did he give up on his son for a damn sword? Shangguan Feiyun's face twitched, his eyes dimmed and shook from anger. His hand gripping Jiyu Santong tensed in reflex. The child was only still alive thanks to his sacred beast heritage. This is utterly preposterous. Shangguan Feiyun howled at the sky, regarding the child with bloodlust. Damn you, Jiyu Yifan. Since you don't want him, then I'll get rid of him for you. Shangguan Feiyun waved his yuan qi-charged finger at Jiyu Santong. He didn't finish as another curtain of light came down from the heavens above. The Big Dipper shone again, only this time, it landed in Flying Cloud City. In Jiyu household what followed was a beam of light shining across the sky that made Shangguan Feiyun's sword pause from falling down. Wait. Bailey Jingwei shouted in haste, looking at the distant light, and turned to the array masters. What is that? One array master stepped forward and bowed. Prime Minister, the world has its own laws and so does arrays. In general, the more power is amassed the greater the effect. This is true for all arrays, teleportation arrays included. He has set up such a star array so fast and small scale in the Flying Cloud manner and using sacred stones, proving his skill and quick thinking. But such array won't work over large distances. It would have needed a larger and more time-consuming array to do so. Something impossible in the central area where someone would have easily noticed. This means he has only used it to escape the manor. Pa. Bailey Jingwei instantly reacted with an angry slap and cursing. Damn it, fool, say it from the start. Since he hasn't gotten far, we have to give chase. Sword King Feiyun, take the kid and let's go. Chapter 919, Light Glow. Chapter 919, Light Glow. Proofreader, Papatonks. Bailey Jingwei turned to the ever-silent Dan Qingshun. Understanding his gaze, Dan Qingshun came to his side and grabbed him before shooting for the light. As a mere ethereal stage cultivator, he'd never catch up to the others with his meager speed unless he had a Genesis stage expert helping him. Shangguan Feiyun figured out the little brat still had his uses as a hostage. Without further ado, he also flew after them with Jiyu Santong in his clutches. As for the other Genesis stage experts, they followed without question of the packed manner of experts so far. Now it turned to have only 5 who were just staring dumbly. Shangguan Feixiong, the 3 venerables and 1 tittering between life and death. Shangguan Yulin, all of them felt weirdly at a loss seeing the others just ignore them outright over someone else. You're telling me that us big shots from eastern lands have no worth? They just treat us like decorations, not even locking their house. The clear humiliation got to these 4 oldies. They had been hiding to stay alive all this time, and now that they were given the cold shoulder their life was over. Talk about being self-critical. Then again, Jiyu Yifan was so young and toyed with both parties like nothing. Truly commendable, brave, amazing and extraordinarily talented. In any other place, even they would have disregarded the Shangguan clan over the kid, since he was just too good. First he snatched Soaring Sword, which was eye-catching enough. Then there was his glorious talent that shone like no other here. What if he were such a marvelous youth? What then? That was of course paying close attention to such a dangerous element. And while these Shangguan oldies were tough, part of a bigger faction, it's been millennia since such a gem appeared within their ranks. Jiyu Yifan was like a younger invincible sword now, even if striking it out on his own. That infinite potential sent shivers down anyone's spine. It was for the same reason Bailey Jingwei and Shangguan Feiyun went after the kid. The Soaring Sword might even be secondary. Shangguan Feixiong sighed at the light pillar. The new replaces the old as every generation surpasses the last one. I just can't believe how the glory of our Shangguan clan has faded compared to some unknown kid. It's not faded, but overshadowed. One venerable nodded. The stars shine brighter upon the night sky only because the clouds hide the moon's glow. The moon can cast her light upon the world all because the sun has fallen beyond the mountains. When the moon comes out, the stars fade. When the sun rises, the moon vanishes. He is the sun and the moon, and as long as he lives past today, his light would be glorious. They all gave a nod at his assessment. The new dawn is heralded by its new heroes. Our time has ended. Should we give chase? I'm worried about Yang. Shangguan Feixiong pondered as he looked at the distant light. One venerable spoke. There's no need. We've been in such a dangerous situation just now and we couldn't even keep Yang safe, but the kid did. He easily walks the path he made for himself to escape, so of course he will. Yang will be fine with him. While we can never catch up to him and get the soaring sword, going after him is pointless. While we no longer take priority with him still around, once he's gone, all that attention will be focused on us. Bailey Jingwei will come with us hard once more and we hardly have the men to fight. Even if we do escape, there'll barely be anyone left. Only a fool would do this, ha ha ha. Shangguan Feixiong nodded and sighed. Kid, you've been wicked and shrewd, using us however you wished, but I haven't exactly been good to you either. Yang isn't like that, she truly cared for the two of you. I just hope you'll take care of her and keep her safe and this old man will be content. Shangguan Feixiong sighed and turned a dark look at the slumped Shangguan Yulin in his hole. Then, venerables, what about this bastard? A traitor is to be taken back and fully questioned. One venerable's eyes shone and snapped. Shangguan Feixiong nodded and went to lift a bitter, pleading and panicking Shangguan Yulin. The four experts flew out of town. They couldn't mess with the matters as they stood, but a traitor was a different matter. The four sported nasty smirks. Shangguan Yulin was feeling worse and worse. What did I do to deserve this? No one wants me. I gave my all as a spy, I worked hard for the clan, but no one cares. Is the world going to let this wrong go unanswered? Oh, snow in June. Smiley face, reference to the injustice to Do-e, a play by Guan Hanqing of a girl's unjust ending and vindication. How fast had he forgotten just who he was really working for, even turning on everyone else? The triple agent had nothing helping him in his endeavors, no morals, and not even loyalty for his own family. Alas, all of these were secondary, paling in comparison to messing with the one man no one ever should, ending up as a stray no one would even take pity on. Meanwhile, with the flash of the light pillar, Zhuo Fan and Shangguan Qingyang appeared in the backyard of the Jiyu household. With no time for her to make sense of everything, Shangguan Feiyun's team had already shown up. A Genesis stage expert speed was nothing to scoff at. He held Jiyu Santong and barked at Zhuo Fan inside the light pillar. Jiyu Yifan, you didn't want him, but I was kind enough to bring your son to you. Hand over the sword now or you can say goodbye to this brat. Young Sanzi, Shangguan Qingyang started despite how Zhuo Fan sported the same cold face, his hands making signs, Merak. Whoosh tilde. In another flash, the two were gone along with their light pillar. Shangguan Feiyun's face twitched. Shit. This bastard is hardcore, ignoring everything and just running off. He didn't care at all. Bailey Jingwei and Dan Qingshan just caught up. Shangguan Feiyun shrugged helplessly, his anger burning hotter than the sun. He showed not the slightest hesitation. I've seen my fair share of stone-cold people, but his to the point of being inhuman. Bailey Jingwei frowned heavily. He'd been using his sharp wits and quick tongue to come up on top every time, but Zhuo Fan wouldn't even stop to listen. He couldn't work his magic, not when the other wouldn't even let him in. Whoosh tilde. Another beam of light was cast upon the world, down yonder. Bailey Jingwei signaled at once and everyone gave chase. Shangguan Feiyun huffed and took Jiyu Santong to find his dad. Jiyu Yifan, your son dash. Whoosh tilde. Shangguan Feiyun's roar reached Zhuo Fan first, but only the first words as he went away once more. The chase went on and on the glorious flying cloud city of the Empire was given quite the funny show. The flying cloud manor was out in force trying to catch some light from the heavens, yet it kept slipping through their fingers. Shangguan Feiyun, with a kid in his arms, was looking like a nagging old biddy chasing her husband to give him an earful. The only thing missing was shrieking and whining in the streets like a banshee. You cold-hearted man, don't just leave your wife and son in the harsh, cruel world. It only helped to fuel Shangguan Feiyun's anger, his turning face red. For God's fricking sake. Isn't this your damn child? I'm here giving him to you and you don't want him? Do it again and I'll just bury him. Of course he was only thinking about it and not putting it into action. They weren't about to get rid of the one thing that might just tie Jiu Yifan down on Zhuofan's side. Seeing how young Sanzi's life was assured, he had no qualms about really leaving this place. It might look heartless and cruel and harsh, but it was the smartest thing to do with father and son together. Their chances were non-existent. While if one ran with the soaring sword, the other was sure to survive. Shangguan Feiyun dangled young Sanzi in front of him for the soaring sword, so Zhuofan of course was going to use it as a way to keep him alive. He was stuck on how to save young Sanzi, so the only choice was to make the enemy keep him alive longer. As for a rescue, Zhuofan's mind was still hard at work among the constant flashing around town. Young Sanzi's sacrifice to save Shangguan Qingyang was unexpected, outside his plan. To try again, he would need to lay serious groundwork first. Soaring sword was nothing much to him, not when young Sanzi was part of the equation. Zhuofan's eyes flashed, his face filled with conviction. Chapter 920, No Winner Tonight. Chapter 920, No Winner Tonight. Proofreader, Papatonks. Fector, Megrez, Aliath, Miza. With every star shining down on Earth, Zhuofan's hands shifted and changed locations. Each time he was brought hundreds of miles away from Shangguan Feiyun, now over 500 miles out of Flying Cloud City. Shangguan Feiyun's team were like flies drawn to the glorious light, always in pursuit yet always coming short. This short delay was compounded with each transfer, making the gap over 50 kilometers wide, but the men could only grit their teeth and keep at it. They were like a bunch of fools made to chase something that was not there for another's amusement. So after the fourth light came, Shangguan Feiyun had had enough, his rage exploding. To hell with it. Is this bastard playing fetch with us? Humph, let him try it again. I won't budge an inch. At worst, I'll just end his son and settle it with Jiu Yifan later. He can't run forever, not while he's in central area. Sword King Feiyun, enough nonsense. All that matters is the soaring sword. So long as the sword is out of reach, we can't harm a hair on his son. What if he snaps and just throws it in some dark hole forever? What then? Bailey Jingwei gave him a warning look, then he turned to the 10 array masters keeping up with them. Grandmasters, you're among the best array experts in the Empire. Have you managed to glean anything into the array after all this time? The 10 experts shared looks and hesitated. Finally one spoke. Prime Minister, at first we understood little about this star array, but we now have begun to notice things. Normal teleportation arrays uses ley lines to travel, shortening the distance between points. All that needed was to break these paths and the transfer will halt. With star teleportation arrays, they follow the heaven way, using star power to connect heaven and earth, thus unbreakable. It's far beyond any ley line teleportation array there is. I don't give a damn about his skill in arrays, or how better he is than you. I just want to know, how do we get to the part where we catch him? Bailey Jingwei's face twitched in annoyance. If he keeps flashing around, won't it go on forever? While he's rested, we'll be weary running all over to catch him. Not likely. Prime Minister can rest assured. The array master pointed at the sky, explaining, the world's forces are in balance, governed by its own laws. These can never be breached by any mortals. The star array is sublime, but it can't escape following the world's nature. It will end. Judging by what we've seen so far, he has borrowed the power of 6 of the 7 stars in the Big Dipper in order, catering to the arrays he set on the ground below. By our reckoning, the next one should be the last. The power of the stars will have been used up through Alcade. This star, having correlated with the previous location, will be shedding its light on this Earth right over there. The array master pointed to some random bush hundreds of miles away with a stuck-up nose. Hey, see that? That's called specializing. With just a little time watching a new array, I can already surmise its process. This is the awesome power of a 11th grade array Mars dash. Pa. He didn't get to gloat for long as a sharp slap sent him spinning. His mind included coming around at some point. He was face to face with an irate Bailey Jingwei flinching. The array masters looked dumbfounded, even wronged. What did we do now? Why's Prime Minister angry with us? How are we in the wrong? Bailey Jingwei spat through gnashed teeth. You bunch of old decrepit fools. Why the hell didn't you say it earlier? Giving me such a drawn-out and useless explanation instead of just pointing to the guy's destination. Humph, ignorant waste. Sword King Feiyun, let's go, we have to keep him there the moment he lands. Right. Shangguan Feiyun followed after Bailey Jingwei with Jiyu Santong in his grip. There they would lay in ambush for the moment Shuofan came. They were finally one step ahead. Prime Minister Bailey, all the array grandmasters you brought seems to have atrophied brains with how slow they are. What can you do when they spent their lives in scrolls about arrays yet missing the workings of the world? They can't read the mood at all. I do find them valuable for that, but also vexed. Be it alchemists or array masters, they all wish to reach the apex in their fields, and for that they study and study some more, in isolation from the rest of the world. They're like pedantic scholars. True, all known great alchemists and array masters have simple minds. Shangguan Feiyun nodded, then his eyebrow twitched, yet the kid's the exception. He's got great alchemy skills, yet he's slipperier than a snake. How did he get so good in alchemy when all he's done was focus on mind games? Bailey Jingwei's brow shook as he nodded. He really is the weirdest aberrant I've seen. Baffling everyone yet instilling in them great danger. Shangguan Feiyun's eyes flashed. As the two talked, Dan Qingshun was content to just carry Bailey Jingwei in silence. Mediocrity breeds no hatred and envy, while brilliance draws danger. Boy! Whoosh tilde. The figures dashed through the air and Bailey Jingwei's group reached the bush just as the last light came down from the heavens above, just like that array master predicted. Shuofan and Shangguan Qingyang faded in behind the light. Ha ha ha, the old coot was right. The kid is coming here. Shangguan Feiyun laughed with Jiyu Santong in hand, looking smuff. Let's see how you run now. Grandmaster Jiyu, I've come to deliver your son, ha ha ha. Shangguan Qingyang gasped at Shangguan Feiyun's vile expression. How are they so fast now? We just stopped and they already caught up. They must have noticed the array's process. Quite normal when you have 10 array masters in tow. Shuofan watched as the enemy was looking at him like a piece of meat to gorge on. Other than that, his face was flat, his hands steady as the signs flowed, not that it makes a difference. Alcade. Tilde. The pillar of light exploded in a blinding light that turned night into day in an instant. The violent surge spread everywhere, including Shangguan Feiyun's group. They were forced to a halt and gasping for breath as they covered their eyes from the light. Bailey Jingwei covered his face but let only a slit to see the smirking Shuofan behind the curtain of light. He shouted at the array masters, "Just what is this? The array's power is too strong for even a Genesis stage expert to get close. Prime Minister, we don't know at the moment. We need to observe for longer." Screw you. The array masters were covering their eyes as well and their response only made Bailey Jingwei angry. These old geezers always mess up when I need them most. Shuofan laughed. Ha ha ha, Prime Minister sir, of course they don't know. But I can give them a tip. The name of the array is Big Dipper Flinging Array. The crux of it isn't the 7 stars but the dipper, get it? Whoosh tilde. Giving a most annoying smile, the two were gone along with their pillar of light, leaving behind his last solemn words, "Thank you, Prime Minister, for looking after my wretched son. If you still feel the need to have the soaring sword, I ask that you raise him big and strong for when I'll be coming to take him back, ha ha ha." Whoosh. The 7 stars up above sported faint lines between them, connecting each one with one last flash. Big Dipper shone brighter and shot a ray of light like a shooting star. Splitting the sky in two at the end of the ray was none other than North Star. Right after, one last pillar of light smashed onto Earth, shaking it hard this time. However, there was no chase. It was just too far away, needing days for even Genesis stage experts to catch up. Shuofan had just gotten away from right under their noses looking at the sparkling light. Everyone had a dull gaze. The entire force of the manor had been running around in circles for the better part of the night, yet they had nothing to show for it. All they had been doing was ending up as the butt of another's joke. The worst part was he was only in the radiant stage. Humiliation did not even begin to describe the utter shame and crushing defeat. It was not reduced to Flying Cloud Manor's disgrace, but it included Bailey Jingwei's, Sword Star Empire's, and the Nine Sword Kings. Bailey Jingwei held his head and sighed. The great sage of the empire had been led by the nose all night long. Chapter 921, Back at the Start. Chapter 921, Back at the Start. Proofreader, Papatonks. Ha ha ha, we have it. All watched the fading light with crushed looks. Flying Cloud Manor's hundreds of Genesis stage experts, with a Sword King and the Sage of the Empire, found themselves utterly helpless in stopping one small thief. The news was hard to swallow to anyone and the mood was bleak. But not for all, evident by that bright laughter with twitching faces and angry glares. They knew the laughter wasn't mocking them, but it still felt like scorn in their ears, so they turned towards the culprit, one of the 10 array masters, totally oblivious of the hatred he gathered. The array master looked positively radiant at his discovery, skipping like a child to Bailey Jingwei. Prime Minister, we got it. The intricacy of the star array is obvious now. Bailey Jingwei frowned and didn't speak, but seeing their innocent smiles made him shake his head. Prime Minister, the Big Dipper flinging array isn't just a short teleportation array but also a gathering array. He had been moving 7 times, 6 times between Dub and Alcade, while the last transfer unleashed all the power the array gathered. It is just a minor teleportation array but acts like a major one. Using the connection between the North Star and the Big Dipper, he formed a large transfer. That's why he said the focus wasn't on the stars but on the Big Dipper, which is none other than a hint at North Star. By flinging he meant by using all the star power in the Big Dipper through the North Star. Bailey Jingwei's disappointed face didn't even register to the ecstatic array master, growing more and more exuberant. The sudden venue of research he discovered was too much excitement for him to bear. The star array is truly wondrous. I did say you must have the skills to do it, and power. Without it, it wouldn't get you far. I just didn't imagine he'd used 7 stars power into one. That's why there was such a great surge right at the end. But too much power would damage a minor array such as this, which is why it only works once. See for yourself, the array formation is ruined. The array master went to the bush and after a bit of searching he came out with sacred stone fragments, shouting, "See? It's exactly as we deducted. The power overwhelmed the array and ruined it, ha ha ha." The other 9 array masters broke out in laughter alongside him. This proved their conjecture was without a doubt correct. Bailey Jingwei was drained of the energy to even cuss at them. He just sighed and flew back to the manor. Dan Qingshun went after him. The array masters were stumped. Is Prime Minister mad at us? He was so eager to know just a minute ago. It's too late. Shangguan Feiyun sighed. He's gone now, so what's the point of explaining? Humph, some array grandmasters you are. Shangguan Feiyun left as well with the guards. Some even shot them some looks of disdain. Bookworms only like to show off. The 10 were left baffled and clueless. Too late? Sure, it is late, but not too late. The guy might have escaped, but getting this long-lost star array is invaluable. Do you have any idea what it's worth? Humph, what does a dumb Philistine even know? The array master mocked them. They're gone, so let's research the array the man set up. Careful not to damage it further. This is a star array we're talking about. Those uncultured swines have no idea what they're dealing with here. Unlike them, our research might even lead us to develop many new arrays. Here. Well said. His friends wholly agreed, getting to work at once. They treated each remnant as an archaeology site, turning every nook and cranny and speck of dust to get the most out of it. This was the difference between a specialist and a politician. The first focused on his own world, going for new discoveries and innovations, while the second only cared about reputation and his pockets. These two groups had no tangent whatsoever while also shunning each other. The politician laughed at the specialist for being pedantic, while the specialist disdained a politician's sophistry. When a politician became a specialist, he'd show no result. If a specialist changed sides, his life would be ruined, always pulled in all directions and blocked from committing himself to his research. There would be no progress as well. Bailey Jingwei had a healthy respect for specialists, since all he cared about was the benefits these men brought along. As for their academic research and goals, He knew nothing, nor was he willing to try. They were each stuck with a different perspective, abhorring the other's style in every way, though Bailey Jingwei understood one truth, that only the obsession and pedantic made one a specialist. Disapproval and poor communication aside, he wholly approved of them, for he had only to gain from these kinds of specialists. With all the anger and frustration in their interactions, it was still not enough to snap and just kill them. This was just one of the crucial qualities for a man in power. Back in the manor, at the Jade Falls, Bailey Jingwei gasped at the icicles on the ground. He'd been going against people his whole life, yet this time he failed so miserably. He had gained nothing in this fight. Jiu Yifan, you're a true genius, but one that I found most revolting. Bailey Jingwei took a deep breath. We were born with conflicting personalities. Bemoaning a new contender. As we're both deep thinkers, clashes are unavoidable. Guess scholars always tend to criticize another, ha ha ha. Whoosh tilde. Shangguan Feiyun came over with Jiu Santong, Prime Minister. What about the brat? Lives for now. Until Jiu Yifan takes the bait, then he dies with him. Bailey Jingwei gnashed his teeth. Shangguan Feiyun mocked. That's rare, for the talent-cherishing Prime Minister to have such bloodlust against another talent. He must really have gotten under your skin, ha ha ha. Today has nothing to do with it. Even knowing his real talents, I'd have never let him take another breath all the same. Especially if I could use him. Bailey Jingwei's eyes flashed and left while leaving behind a chilling tone. I loathe anyone like me. Shangguan Feiyun smirked. Scholars never call themselves the best, while fighters always fake modesty, saying they're second. Fighters shed blood and sweat in their savage fights, while scholars pit their minds in convoluted schemes. So even the great Prime Minister Bailey cannot live this down. He must really feel threatened, ha ha ha. Shangguan Feiyun turned to the now ruined water garden and gnashed his teeth. Jiu Yifan, you ruined my paradise and I'll ruin you. Shangguan Feiyun huffed and walked away, the wounded Jiu Santong dangling in his hand and leaving a trail of blood behind. Dan Qingshan stroked his beard while shaking his head. Boy, you now have a pair of rabid dogs after you. This will only get hard for you from now on. Meanwhile, as the beam of light fell, Zhuo Fan and Shangguan Qingyang appeared among the glittering moats in a thick forest leagues away from Flying Cloud City. Shangguan Qingyang was still shell-shocked by what had transpired. She had been going 100 miles at a time in each jump, then out of nowhere they were so far she couldn't see a shadow of Flying Cloud City. Shangguan Feiyun was not getting to them now. Relishing the thought, Shangguan Qingyang turned to Zhuo Fan. Mr. Jiu, how did you? Wait here. I need to blow off steam. Zhuo Fan spoke coldly and went deep in a dark cave. Shangguan Qingyang looked worried, apprehensive at his words as she waited. Tense howls of beasts soon reverberated from the cave. Filled with anger and frustration, Shangguan Qingyang jerked, lowering her head as she understood his grief. He needed to let go. All that perfect planning to get him and young Sanzi away from Flying Cloud City failed. Because of me, his son was taken. She blamed herself for everything, shedding tears of remorse in solitude. The howls went on for a long time into the black night, all the way till dawn. Shangguan Qingyang was conflicted about what was happening, how he was, but could not gather the courage to venture inside the cave. When Zhuo Fan finally did come out, he had a flat look, deader than before. What got Shangguan Qingyang curious was that Zhuo Fan's aura felt dimmer in a way, and that his cultivation fell to the 4th layer of radiant stage from 5th. Chapter 922, Goodbye. Chapter 922, Goodbye. Proofreader, Papa Tonks. How? Shangguan Qingyang's lip quivered as she stared at Zhuo Fan's flat expression in shock and doubt. Zhuo Fan sighed, having figured out her question. What's the problem? I just advanced in these 2 days, is all. Advance? Then how? I use a different cultivation method than the rest. It focuses on the mind, into going back to one's nature, the true self-art. Zhuo Fan spoke. What looks like regression is in fact hiding one's aura, blurring inside as cultivation returns to inception and purest chaotic form, all while the power grows. At the same time, the heart and mind attain peace, impulses drop and help one's character. Every time something bothers or triggers me, I cultivate. I've been doing this for the past 2 years. Zhuo Fan's eyes looked peaceful, but there was a sadness deep in there that nothing could cover. He had been cultivating Elder Yuan's cultivation method for these 2 years, to calm his mind. All that sorrow and longing had been quelled for so long. Shangguan Qingyang noticed something and asked, "You mean because your wife, these years?" "That's enough of that," Zhuo Fan shouted, cutting her off. "Where's your Shangguan clan meeting? I'll take you there." Shangguan Qingyang jerked and then saw the calm look he still had. She dropped the subject and led the way, glancing at her. Zhuo Fan's eyes flashed as he followed. One man and one woman flew, one in front and one behind, eastbound. As the sun rose again in front, 2 days passed. They had not spoken a single word all this time. Zhuo Fan sported the same dry look while Shangguan Qingyang was anxious all the time, stealing glances. She wanted to ask more, or better yet, know him more. But that distant expression of his quelled any such curiosity. Another day stuck like that. Shangguan Qingyang descended next to a lake. Zhuo Fan floated down next to her and scanned the surroundings. "Is this where the Shangguan clan is retreating?" "Quite hidden." "How did you know?" "I didn't tell you." Shangguan Qingyang gasped. Zhuo Fan shook his head. "Did you forget I dabble in arrays? The barrier around the lake is invisible to the average eye, but it can't hide from mine. If it wouldn't be bad manners barging in, I would have popped it already." She batted her big purdy eyes, once again stunned. Even as Zhuo Fan gave her a funny look, she still didn't react, just staring at him like a statue. "Is there anything else you can do that I don't know about?" "Aplenty, but why should I tell you? Just ring the doorbell already." Zhuo Fan sighed and shook his head. He flicked her head, jerking it and making her pout in pain. She wasn't really angry, just blushing. With a bright smile, she made a sign to open the barrier but didn't finish as someone shouted, "Who's there?" 2 youths in white pooped in front in high alert. "It's me, can't you see it?" Stucking out her chin, Shangguan Qingyang declared. The two paused, then exploded, "Young miss, you're back. Clan head has been so worried about you." Shangguan Qingyang nodded with a smile. "Hold up. Jiyu Yifan, you dare show your face here? Die." The two finally noticed Zhuo Fan and their bloodlust exploded. Backed by their soul harmony stage cultivation, Shangguan Qingyang panicked and wanted to stop them. "What are you doing?" "Young miss, clan head and the venerables told us Jiyu Yifan was a spy. All our losses are due to him. Now we'll have our revenge for our kin." The two spat, advising Shangguan Qingyang, "Young miss, step aside. Don't let his pretty words fool you. He has got to die." The two savage looks had her tense. She stood before them still, defending Zhuo Fan. "As long as I'm here, no one will harm a hair on Mr. Gu's body." "Young miss." The two regarded Shangguan Qingyang's determination and sighed in defeat and pain. Shangguan Qingyang looked behind her and whispered, "Leave quickly, before Dad comes out. Now, while I can still protect you. Once everyone is here, I won't be able to do anything. No one asked you to. I came just to see your dad. Now move along and lead me to him." Zhuo Fan stated. Shangguan Qingyang glared hard at him. "Is this the time to show your brave side? You had so many of our clan killed. My dad is the head and won't just let you go. Are you that intent on dying?" All the more reason the young miss of the Shangguan clan should call out her daddy, to punish this criminal and get retribution. "Well, what are you standing around for? Why you?" Shangguan Qingyang was stunned and then she cursed, "Can't you see I'm helping you? Why do you insist on walking to your death? If you die, what will I tell young Sanzi?" Zhuo Fan's tone was cold, "None of your concern. I came here for your dad. If you won't lead me, then I'll just barge in by myself." Zhuo Fan was getting ready to make good on his words. Shangguan Qingyang earnestly stopped him while grumbling, "Barging in will only make it worse." "Fine then, have it your way. I'll go tell him you're here." "Maybe I can." Shangguan Qingyang shook her head, feeling that her request would most likely land on deaf ears. But since no persuasion worked on Zhuo Fan, she had no choice but brace for the worst. Shangguan Qingyang made her sign and the tranquil lake water rippled. A black hole formed as the entrance of a deep cave was presented to them. "You two, be nice. You're not to do anything until I return. Is that clear?" Shangguan Qingyang was about to go in, then she warned the two guards to not make a mess of things. The two looked at each other and bowed most respectfully, as young miss command. "We understand. You better." Shangguan Qingyang nodded and her dress flicked as she entered. She gazed back in worry even as she did. "Mr. Jiyu, you can still walk away." Zhuo Fan rolled his eyes. Shangguan Qingyang sighed and went deeper. The cave echoed with her ever-distant steps, until they vanished. The guards were listening to every noise, to make sure she was gone. Then they sported nasty grins. Their bloodlust was directed at Shuafan, ready to pounce. Shuafan gave an insufferable smirk. Young Miss is back. Shangguan Qingyang didn't go too far and a patrol announced her return with joy. The clan head rushed over at once, unable to contain his happiness to find his daughter was alive. He hugged her tight. Younger, you're here at last. Are you hurt? I'm fine, Dad, thanks for asking. Shangguan Qingyang was happy too. Then Shangguan Feixiong asked in a rush, Younger, how come you only got back now? Did he do anything to you? No, Mr. Jiyu has been nice ever since he saved me. He even escorted. What, he brought you here? She just wanted to put Shuafan in a good light, but Shangguan Feixiong was stunned. Where is he now? Chapter 923, Renegotiations. Chapter 923, Renegotiations. Proofreader, Papatonks. Shangguan Qingyang's heart sank, stuck on what would be a good response. She wanted to start off by making Shuafan sound good and get her clan to change their impression of him. This way, the request wouldn't sound so harsh. Now her dad wouldn't even let her speak her intention. The two might even come to blows. It was like bringing fire to gunpowder. What do I do? Shangguan Feixiong noticed her hesitation. You don't know? After escorting you, did he leave or not? Father, please calm down first. You have to only just talk with him. He could have his own share of problems. Shangguan Qingyang didn't reply, trying to mediate in Shuafan's stead. Shangguan Feixiong got the gist of it, so he's outside. With who? We met two clansmen and are watching. Damn it. Shangguan Feixiong clenched his fists and rushed out. The other elders and experts, venerables included, went with whenever kids clash, it always leads to a fight. Jiyu Yifan must be. Shangguan Feixiong frowned and Shangguan Qingyang was happy at his reaction. Father, are you worried about Mr. Jiyu? Great, so you don't hate him. But don't worry, I already warned them. They won't do anything to Mr. Jiyu and wait for you to come. Worried about him? Ha. Shangguan Feixiong snapped, annoyed. The last few days we spent interrogating that bastard Yulin. Now we know that Jiyu Yifan destroyed him in one strike. There's no way the two guards can even harm him. Once they fight, they'll only get killed. The Shangguan clan will never allow anyone to trample over us. Shangguan Qingyang jerked and stuck her tongue. I told you that I warned them. Mr. Jiyu came to see you as well so he won't make a scene. Warn? Do you actually think some hot-headed youth will just listen just because some wench told him to? Shangguan Feixiong sighed. Boldness is good for youths, but too much leads to recklessness and unforgiving mistakes. Second elder, are those two yours? No matter what happens, you have to stay calm. We'll handle it after we know his reason for being here. The elder in question nodded at once. Clan head, I've been cultivating for so long now, my mind is like a rock. You still don't know me? Ha ha ha, it's because I know you too well that I'm warning you. You never once smoothened your nasty temper all these years. Shangguan Feixiong shook his head. The Shangguan clan's big men made their grandiose entrance, or exit, outside. They all looked tense, like they were meeting another big faction. Shangguan Qingyang clicked her tongue. What's up with them? Father's more than enough to see Mr. Jiyu. What's the need of coming out in full force? Her tiny mind was still telling her that Shuafan was her peer, waiting for his punishment like any disciple in the wrong. He was no different from Shangguan Yulin, who was also a traitor. Shangguan Feixiong's thinking was different. For the job he planned on Flying Cloud Manor, the Shangguan clan saw Shangguan Yulin as a spy, but not Shuafan. Shuafan ended up being the master in the shadows. He was the third party in the clash between the manor and the Shangguan clan. Not to mention he made a fool out of the greatest sage in the empire, Bailey Jingwei. There was nothing reasonable about judging Shuafan. Not when he exceeded the limits within which any normal youth should operate. He was a faction leader in his own right. Their coming in force at Shuafan was not in any way to label him a traitor, but to negotiate from one leader to another. It sounded ridiculous to anyone's ears. Hundreds of your Genesis stage experts are coming out to see a Soul Harmony stage kid at best. And for what? Negotiations? That there was the problem. He wasn't just of soul harmony stage strength, but a calculative man of Bailey Jingwei's level. Wasn't Prime Minister Bailey worthy of their talks? It only gave Zhuo Fan more value. One other aspect was worth mentioning. The soaring sword was with him, and that left them with even fewer choices. They refused to believe a youth shrewd enough to clash with Bailey Jingwei would let his hormones do the talking and hand it over just because hundreds of experts were giving him mean looks. As such, negotiations. Shangguan Feixiong's group opened the barrier and came out in power. But then his face twitched. The worst-case scenario he pictured came true. Zhuo Fan was just casually standing next to a bush. The problem started when one looked down at the blood under his feet. The two young Shangguan clan guards were battered and bleeding on the ground, giving an on and off groan to signal they were still in this world. One was sure that even they were baffled how a radiant stage youth would just wreck them like nothing. Their eyes were filled with sorrow and pain, but no amount would change reality. The info came too late. We didn't get to notify the clan of his strength. Damn it, just where did this pair of monstrous son and father come from? One's freakier than the next. The elders sighed. The elder, declaring his rock-steady nerves to Shangguan Feixiong, was now boiling at the humiliation his disciples were given. His mighty aura of a Genesis stage expert was on full display. Zhuo Fan spared the man no glance, laughing and being friendly. Uncle, these 3 days felt like years. Did you miss me? Ha ha ha. Cut the bullshit. I saw exactly what you are 3 days ago. Stop with the damn acting. Jiu Yifan. Shangguan Feixiong's face tensed and snapped. Why are you here? What's your angle? Zhuo Fan paused in his step, revealing a bright smile. Shangguan Qingyang interjected, in hopes of easing the tension. Father, Mr. Jiu cared about my safety and walked me back. Nah, I asked her to lead me here to chat with Shangguan clan head. Zhuo Fan didn't let her sugarcoat it and cut her good intentions short. With his words, his tone grew colder as well. Shangguan clan head, I have an offer for you. Interested? Shangguan Feixiong stared at the cold and savage face. Speak. Then I'll be blunt. Zhuo Fan began, for the sake of your precious daughter, my son was captured by Shangguan Feiyun. As the Shangguan clan is a clan devoted to righteousness, wouldn't it be natural for you to return the favor and help me save my son? Shangguan Qingyang shook. Mr. Jiu is risking so much for his son. He came to see Dad for this. Yeah, for me, young Sanzi. This doesn't concern you. Leave. Shangguan Feixiong cut her off, staring hard at Zhuo Fan. Ha ha ha, save my daughter. You two used her as bait to control my clan. We've danced to your tune for the better half of a month and cost the lives of so many of my people. If I could, I would give up my daughter in exchange for their lives. Now you want us to take such a high risk for saving my daughter. Whatever for? Shangguan Qingyang shook, gasping at her father's words. Her heart was in pain, hanging her head and shedding tears in distress. Father cares more about others than me. This was her father, devoted to good. If I could give my life for them, then I would. Shangguan Qingyang's heart was crushed, but understood that this came for what her clan believed in. Shangguan Feixiong paid her no heed, still glaring in anger at Zhuo Fan. The elders declared, we will follow our righteous clan head to death. Righteous? Zhuo Fan quirked an eyebrow as he searched Shangguan Feixiong's eyes. He wasn't buying it, throwing away your flesh and blood for mere sympathy points. Hypocrite. Nothing more than a trick of negotiation. Did you really think I'd fall for that gimmick? Humph. Chapter 924, Successful Cooperation. Chapter 924, Successful Cooperation. Proofreader. Papatonks. Zhuo Fan's eyes shone with disdain, his face skewed in the most condescending way possible. Shangguan clan head, that's quite a fact-twisting. It's no different than saying that I and my son ended up causing your heavy casualties. Even with saving your precious daughter, it pales to the hundreds of lost lives. But ask yourself this, was your clan's losses the result of my design? Shangguan Feixiong shook, winced and became solemn. Humph. Your clan fell for the scheme, 1, because of Bailey Jingwei's deliberate and devious ploy, and 2, because of you, Shangguan Feixiong, due to your narrow-minded view and your shaky decisions. Take me out of the picture and the Shangguan clan would have suffered all the same. You'd still have your traitor. You'd still be jumping at the chance to send Shangguan Yulin to the Pill King convention Bailey Jingwei set up just for you. That punk would still turn on his clan. And, of course, your clan would still suffer and die in Bailey Jingwei's trap. You can't blame this one me, not when I had no hand in it. It's all you, Shangguan Feixiong. It's what the incompetent and greedy Shangguan clan head brought to fruition. I was only there for the ride, a mere passenger. Your disaster has not a thing to do with me, Zhuo Fan shouted, filled with mockery and disdain. Quite the contrary, if you think about it. It's my very existence that stirred things at the falls and caused Bailey Jingwei to panic into breaking your trap and allowing you stragglers to be standing here. You might even say that I'm not just your daughter's savior, but everyone's. You're spitting on another's favor and going as far as poisoning the well by throwing all your incompetence on me. Talk about being ungrateful. Is this how the righteous number one clan in Eastern lands operates? I spit on you, hypocrites. Zhuo Fan's roars rang into their ears, cutting them deep. Some were so overcome with realization that they hung their heads in shame. He didn't care about us, but he only used both of the parties' fight for his benefit. He has not endangered Shangguan clan at all. As he said, is there no one who wouldn't play the third party and kill the remains of the first two? How can we just blame our shortcomings on an outsider? This isn't how the best clan in Eastern lands takes responsibility. He did offer us a fake map, but even if it was real, Bailey Jingwei would still have trapped us. When all was said and done, their fight with Flying Cloud Manor was only on them. Like he said, if not for his involvement, we'd remain mere fish in a barrel, awaiting our demise. We have no right to blame him. He really is the Shangguan clan's savior. The elders behind Shangguan Feixiong were chattering, forcing him to shake his head. The imposing stance he had was now crushed. They were Genesis stage experts and would not pick on the weak, especially with their righteous reputation. They always had to find the moral high ground for their every action. This was why excuses were everything. Even if one was up to no good, they had to find a good explanation first. This righteousness was like a chain holding his clan's experts back. Their original plan was to come out in force and flex a bit in hope they'd scare Zhuo Fan enough to fork out the sword as to gain absolution. Now that he tore their groundless excuses to shreds, they had no right to demand it. They were not vile, or hypocrites to such a degree. If they could use the proper means to get their wish, good. They would never stoop so low as to stain their beliefs. They didn't have the nerve to seeing them stuck. Zhuo Fan stared at their conflicted looks. Shangguan Feixiong was looking gloomier than ever, not knowing what to do as the whispers behind him continued. The Shangguan clan's position had been crushed from the start. Shangguan Feixiong pondered and this time regarded Zhuo with seriousness. Jiu Yifan, you may be right. This loss was on us and not you. But to have us rescue your son, I'm afraid that's not possible. We've suffered heavy losses and can't even fight the Flying Cloud Manor. As a clan head, I cannot unjustifiably risk my people's lives. You may be our savior, but I'll still have to refuse. Faker. Zhuo Fan mocked him. Shangguan clan head, a true man doesn't talk behind another's back. You've come to the central area with so many people yet had not once considered the risk, how many you would lose. Humph. Shangguan Feixiong regarded him in silence. Zhuo Fan scoffed, death is either heavy or worthless. Every life has its value. Hasn't that value been long established for all of you? Soaring sword. Shangguan Feixiong's eyes shone with an evil smirk. Zhuo Fan nodded, right? Shangguan clan head, let's be honest for once. You all came to the central area for the soaring sword, but now it lies with me. In other words, I can use it to buy your lives for my purpose, right? Of course not. Even with so many of us here, we still have our principles. With excessive losses. Oh, right, my bad. I wasn't talking about all of you, just a few experts. I mean, there's no point in using some weak fools like these two here. They'd just die anyway, ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan cut Shangguan Feixiong's off, dispelling his misgivings while driving his point by kicking the beaten and helpless guys on the ground. Shangguan Feixiong approved, that's reassuring. This was his limit. The pain of just letting these youths die in the central area instead of going back home was too much for him to accept. These kids were the future of the Shangguan clan. Their deaths meant the crippling of Shangwon clan's power and a bleak fate regardless of times. The greatest power of a clan or a sect would always be its heritage. With just some awesome experts at the helm, one just had to wipe them all out and your faction would crumble by itself, while this intermediate part would in a couple of decades turn into heroes. The clan would flourish and it would be glorified. As for the experts, they could enter the enemy camp no problem. So long as they weren't trapped like before, escaping couldn't be easier. When Zhuo Fan offered the soaring sword to some experts, he instantly weighed the pros and cons, agreeing to the deal. Though some skepticism remained, Jiu Yifan, I can lend them to you, but how are you going to handle flying cloud manner's overwhelming force? Do you have any guarantees? Who do you take me for, you? Humph. Zhuo Fan scorned, lighten up, I'm not going brain dead like you and won't incur heavy losses. The chances are not one of them might even die while you'd be getting a bargain with the soaring sword. Shangwon clan head, ha ha ha. Shangwon Feixiong shook. The biting words entered his ears yet didn't get a rise. All he did was stare at his confident eyes before nodding. We've seen just how shrewd he is. I just hope it's the case. Since he's only asking for some experts, they could react to anything. Not how he was always passive and ended up with sacrifices. Shangwon Feixiong frowned. Agreeing was one thing and his restless mind was another. Though unlike him, Second Elder's rage could not be quenched. Humph, so now we're supposed to listen to some brat? Yep, got a problem? Damn right. Shangwon clan's elders follow the clan head, not some rotten punk. Second Elder's fury peaked as he regarded the disciples at Zhuo Fan's feet. Moreover, we're not about to just turn a blind eye to you harming our disciples without a reason. Zhuo Fan sported a crafty smile, egging him on. Senior, you're welcome to step forward and I'll be more than happy to justify myself for these two juniors' predicament. Humph, you had your chance to apologize. Second Elder huffed and stomped before Zhuo Fan, shouting, these two are my disciples. Harming them means... Pa. The crisp and snappy sound of the slap rang in everyone's ears. Second Elder's thin cheek now sported a very conspicuous mark. Zhuo Fan waved his hand around. What are you waiting for a face slap? SSS tilde. Everyone else gasped in stupefaction. Second Elder was a Genesis stage expert that warranted clan heads' respect when being addressed. Now though, a mere radiant stage brat slapped him, shaming and humiliating him in the worst possible way. Chapter 925, Love Between Father and Daughter. Chapter 925, Love Between Father and Daughter. Proofreader, Papatonks. Jiu Yifan, you're finished. The old man's going to kill you. They all watched, sighing helplessly and stunned. This kid had such a gall on him that he'd go and just slap a Genesis stage expert's face. Literally. Second Elder had his mind black for a second there, but the feel of his scorching sting on that cheek made his face twist in fury as he howled. He unleashed all his power filled with bloodlust, thinking only about killing Zhuo Fan as he went to smash his brains out. You goddamn punk, now you've done it. Why not? The question is, what are you going to do about it? Hit me back. Zhuo Fan jabbed. Did your atrophied mind already forget about the soaring sword? Kill me and you can say goodbye to it. You'll be the shame of the clan. The sudden palm attack stopped just as fast as it started, though it kept shaking for some reason. Second Elder glared at Zhuo Fan with bloodshot eyes, but his only option was to grind his teeth, stop with his attack midway and come to terms to reality. Zhuo Fan's words cut right where it hurt the most. They came all the way here, to the central area, just for that particular sword. If, say, they failed because of his lousy temper in offing the kid, he'd end up destroying all his clan's sacrifices and hard work so far. Second Elder's every fiber screamed to just let go and do it, but he reined in all the fury, thinking about who he was doing it for. But the rage was bouncing around in his skull with nowhere to go and affecting his mood. Rotten punk, just you wait. If it weren't for the clan. Pa. Zhuo Fan gave a quick response in the form of another quite resounding slap on the other cheek, just to match. Why wait? Geezer. Enough of playing your seniority card. I already said that I'm using the soaring sword for your lives. Haven't you come after this thing anyway? Forget about those meager slaps, even killing these two at my feet still won't give you any worth to haggle with me, you. Second Elder's heart jerked. pointing at him, but his mind was so overwhelmed cursing came hard. The brat was too obnoxious and insufferable in his gloating. It was even worse knowing he could get away with it too, mocking the other as much as he wanted since the victim had to just sit there and take it. So he huffed and puffed for a while now, but that was it. Everyone else was dumbfounded. Their second elder, who was always like a powder keg, just got manhandled by a kid. The same kid had the soaring sword, granted, but the other was a veteran who fought in hundreds of battles. Was it that easy to just deflate him? The three venerables nodded with hard faces. What a shrewd tactic. It's only more obvious he's capable of it since he beat Bailey Jingwei. Ignoring second elder popping a vein there, Shuofan walked over to the cave like the others weren't even there. I'm going in to pick the men and I'll be gone. The other looked from him to the still fuming second elder with dumb looks. Shangguan Qingyang was stunned by this new side of Shuofan. That he'd have the nerve to mess with a Genesis stage expert. It only worked to make her heart race faster. A demon archon. A whisper traveled, completing her thought, savage as a demon and dominating like a king. There was no other explanation. She turned to see who it was that said it and found it to be her own father, only to find his face solemn. Feeling her gaze, Shangguan Feixiong told the elders, "Go and watch the kid. Read his pattern, but don't incite him. He is shrewd and brave, with a subtle mind and having the one thing we want the most. What's worse, he doesn't fear us at all." "All right, Feixiong, we will. At the very least, we won't get slapped out of nowhere by a kid, ha ha ha." Glaring at second elder, the venerable mocked. Then he turned serious and led the men into the cave after Shuofan. For all intents and purposes, the kid was just that, a junior, but his twisted mind and subtleties left these men of power seeing him as nothing less than a fearsome character, their equal. As for second elder, he got coaxed by other elders to come along, recalling at the last minute there were two disciples. Shuofan thrashed and picked them up to heal them. The place was soon left to Shangguan Feixiong and his daughter. He called to her as she was leaving, "Hold on, Yang. What is it, father?" Shangguan Qingyang asked. Shangguan Feixiong paused in hesitation, but spoke honestly. "Yang, now that we're alone, I want to apologize." "Apologize?" "Yeah." Shangguan Feixiong sighed. "Yang, your mom passed away early and I have remarried many times to cultivate our art, but you're the only daughter I ever had, and no one can replace you in my heart. I have said those words, of exchanging your life with others, but it was only part of the plan, not actually feasible. What parent on this heaven's green earth would have the heart to give his child away? Even for 10 or 100, no one will." Shangguan Qingyang shook and her eyes shone with hope. Shangguan Feixiong sighed. "I only said it to chip away at Jiu Yifan's stance in the negotiations and take the initiative. I could not let him, just because he saved my daughter, offer everything on a silver platter, even paying with our people's lives. Saying some falsehoods is natural in negotiations. Maybe you think I'm a hypocrite instead of open and direct, ruining Shangguan clan head's righteous name, but this is the world we live in, Yang. If my words hurt you, then I want to apologize. A father can always see his daughter's tears no matter where you are." "Father." Shangguan Qingyang was overjoyed as she went to hug him, tears gushing. "I knew that father cared about me the most. No matter how stubborn I was or how I always annoyed the aunties, father won't ever change. I knew father loved me the most. Father may not be the most righteous man, but you're the best father a daughter could have." Shangguan Feixiong smiled and nodded. "I'm glad you understand. I thought you'll no longer respect me after seeing me lying. Now, haha, that it's out in the open, I feel so much better. Father, you said it was only a trick to switch the negotiations in your favor. Did it work?" Shangguan Qingyang looked at him in curiosity. Shangguan Feixiong's face twitched and he sighed. The kid's too cunning and I wasn't able to get any advantage, crushing me at every step. Did you not see his outrageous arrogance? He even dared mock me. He now holds all the cards in this deal while I'm the loser. I just want to get him to finish his goal and get the sword from him. With his cocky attitude, if he stays for too long, something's bound to happen. He really is the devil." "Oh." Shangguan Qingyang nodded with a bright smile. Shangguan Feixiong noticed the sparks in her eyes and sighed. "She's all grown up and a man is going to take her from me. The day is fast approaching. But he's just too dangerous." Shangguan Feixiong took a deep breath. feeling for the first time that even as the clan head, he could not assure her happiness, for the man she had her eyes on was uncontrollable. Zhuo Fan walked around the cave like he owned the place, with the elders and venerables in tow. It was as if an emperor went out on a stroll with his guards. The other clansmen there were struck dumb, especially the juniors. Isn't that Jiu Yifan, the traitor? Why does it look like the elders are catering to him like a clan head in this secret base? They all wore goony looks as Zhuo Fan passed them. Chapter 926, Expendable. Chapter 926, Expendable. Proofreader, Papatonks. Say kid, just what are you looking for in the cave? Having looked over most of the cave yet not particularly interested in anything there, or maybe they were beneath him, one man got curious since he also didn't start choosing his party. Zhuo Fan's eyes shone and looked at the puzzled people, looking for someone, a messenger. Messenger? Precisely. Zhuo Fan grinned. I need a runner, someone to send a letter to Flying Cloud Manor to set a place for a hostage exchange. The clansmen were curious. Exchange hostages? Sure, the soaring sword for my son, Humph. Zhuo Fan scoffed. Shangguan clan elders were stumped but also annoyed. For crying out loud, wasn't that sword supposed to be for us? How'd you use it in an exchange? Zhuo Fan easily read their faces and smiled. It's obviously a ruse. If it were that easy to get my son in an exchange with Bailey Jingwei, I'd have done it already. Why would I waste time coming here of all places? Since I can't put stock in Bailey Jingwei to follow through with the switch, I'll be needing you guys' help. Though if you feel disinclined to lend a hand, or two, I'll just have to go out on a limb. It's all the same to me, really. No, we're glad to help, glad. The elders rushed to reassure him, feeling sweat trickling down their necks. For God's sake, if this punk makes the switch, that'll make all the losses we incurred all for nothing. They could trade with the kid to get the sword, but once it landed in Bailey Jingwei's hands, all hope was lost. So Zhuo Fan had them on a leash, dangling the sword in front of their eyes to do his bidding and making them readjust their attitudes. They were scared that any mood change would push the kid into skipping them for their enemy. One man's pain is another man's joy. This led to the elders treating Zhuo Fan like their ancestor, hanging on every word and following it without question. While the onlooking disciples were looking baffled all this time, do our elders have no dignity? What are they doing hanging around some brat? What about the honor of the Shangguan clan? Why, not me. Every disciple there looked at Zhuo Fan with envy. Not even the successors of the clan were given such respect, and they were the future. Ignoring the blatant dagger stares on his person, Zhuo Fan took a round trip around the place, only to end it with a frown and a sigh. Isn't there any Soul Harmony stage disciple around? Boy, such disciples are rare, barely a few of them around. Of the ones we brought, leaving Shangguan Yulin, the only ones left are the two you beat up. One venerable rushed to answer but then was puzzled. Does it have to be a Soul Harmony stage disciple? What does cultivation have to do with sending a message? Zhuo Fan shook his head. If only it were that simple. This job comes with a high risk of dying. What? Everyone gasped, ignoring their squeaks. Zhuo Fan chided. What's with the whining? What's the big deal about using one life? Didn't you already use so many back in Flying Cloud Manor for the soaring sword? I'm only asking for one, so that's a win for you. I need a Soul Harmony stage cultivator because his self-destruction has to be at that level at the least. An ethereal stage 1 would hardly have any effect in deafening Shangguan Feiyun. I want a disciple out of consideration for you elders. Since you're almighty important to the clan, I can't just as well ask you to die. Then again, since there's no disciple around. Zhuo Fan's eyes scanned the oldies with a creepy smile. They shuddered and jumped in fright. Why the hell would we go back to Flying Cloud Manor, just to blow up? Would they fear Shangguan Feiyun, a sword king, if blowing up had worked? No, it was precisely because it couldn't even scratch him that they didn't feel like blowing themselves up for nothing. Now that Zhuo Fan asked them this, they were put on the spot. Zhuo Fan was totally right. So many died to get the soaring sword and now only one more was needed. But sometimes, a clan had to ignore the pragmatic solution in favor of the ethical one. So many died in their raid of the manor for soaring sword, but that was in the name of the clan. Because of their deaths, the survivors cared even more about the clan. That was called being united. While being ready to sacrifice one member to get to their goal, that was the same as throwing away all ethics, morals, and the clansman's devotion all these years. The collapse of the clan would only be a matter of time. Standing united was the clan's foundation. Zhuo Fan was no Shangguan clansman and would simply write this off, but the elders could not just destroy the clan's morale because of a bit of danger. They'd rather take the worst outcome, with them dying in hundreds for their goal, instead of killing off one of them for it. This was never about gain and loss, it was about spirit. With their morale crushed, there was no team. The elders looked at each other, but they all shook their heads. Zhuo Fan's eyes shook. They're not the fools I took them for, at least. They know when to put their foot down. But I need a man for my dastardly plan. Since Shangguan clan is out, what now? Zhuo Fan sunk into deep thought. A cry echoed throughout the cave, like a squealing pig. It was oddly familiar to Zhuo Fan, who's whining like that. Humph, who else but Shangguan Yulin, the traitor? One venerable spat in disgust. Zhuo Fan lit up and a broad smile crept on his face. People, is this condemned traitor still considered one of you? Could you lend him to me? Though I don't plan on returning him. Well. They looked at each other and then sported smirks. A venerable laughed. Sure, please do. We were still uncertain if we should go for death penalty or torture him first for his heavy crimes. Since Mr. Gu wants him, I believe using his life for the divine sword is enough to absolve him. That'd be so great. What do you guys think? Ha ha ha. The others laughed along, with knowing looks. Alas, the poor Shangguan Yulin had once again hit rock bottom, in the hands of the devilish Zhuo Fan. Now that's fate, or maybe a nightmare. Hey. Zhuo Fan snickered along with the other elders, the sound bouncing off the walls and making it even creepier. A sudden chill crawled down everyone's spine, feeling like demons were cackling in their ears. Arg tilde. In a closed room, Shangguan Yulin was having the torture of his life. He was deformed in the process, hung to a stone pole and sealed of his cultivation. An elder with black beard clamped his shoulder and sent Yuan Qi inside him without qualms, so that his bones would creak and his tendons would snap in the most gruesome way possible. Hence the agonizing cries. The elder demanded, "What else did you tell Shangguan Feiyun? Talk. Does he know about this place?" Sixth elder, have mercy. Sobbing from all the pain, Shangguan Yulin wailed, "Sirs asked me 1,000 times already. I already told you, Shangguan Feiyun only wanted to kill the experts, not to eliminate you completely. He doesn't know of this place. He still wanted me to get back to Eastern lands as a spy. He didn't even ask about our meeting place. Please, have mercy." Sixth elder huffed and ramped up the pain. "So you want to go back as a spy, is it? No matter how many times I hear it, it still fills me with absolute rage, making me wish I could skin you alive. Screw you. You don't care, but I am being asked the same thing over and arg. Mercy, I was wrong, sixth elder. Spare me. I want to see my uncle. Uncle, save me." Shangguan Yulin once again howled in pain and tears. The heavy stone door opened with a creak in his most desperate need, and a familiar and most unwelcome laughter reached him. "Ha ha ha, easy with the cries, your uncle can't save you now. But your master might have something that does." Startled, the two inside looked to see Zhuo Fan walk in with a wide smile, his ridiculing words mocking Shangguan Yulin's wretched situation. Chapter 927, Show Pony. Chapter 927, Show Pony. Proofreader, Papa Tonks. GGU Yifun? Shangguan Yulin's pulse quickened, his eyes widened, his face bore shock. What is going on here? What's this traitor doing here? And, more importantly, what got him so confident to come here? Since every Shangguan clansman saw him as a traitor, it made not 1 ounce of sense for him to just waltz in here. Questions upon questions filled Shangguan Yulin's mind, yet there was no answer to lift the confusion, no sign to clear his doubts. Soon though, none of it even mattered, not when the hatred of revenge took over his faculties and was reduced to just crunching his teeth in rage. It was all this guy's fault that he, Shangguan Yulin, had his bright future as a double agent ruined. It all went down the drain the minute Jiu Yifun popped into the picture. He betrayed the Shangguan clan and was now under their strict and creative torture, while also losing his value to Shangguan Feiyun. He was now so revolting, none saw him as a human being anymore. Everyone despised him, everyone hated him. What was worse, he now had no future, all because of this demon, Gu Yifan Shangguan Yulin's fury only grew as all his failures came to mind. Looking at the insufferable smug face and that demeaning smile, he'd want for nothing more than to tear him apart piece by bloody piece. The thing that took the last straw was that the punk faked being some big-shot demonic cultivator to toy with him and even had to knock his head on the floor for that. It was a humiliation. This young master could never ever accept what emperor would prostrate to a filthy flea-ridden beggar. Anyone would be better than this freak. Everyone had their limits, whether aware of it or not. Shangguan Yulin's was Zhuo Fan. Anyone can be better than me but not this bastard. I'm superior to you in every way. This was none other than Shangguan Yulin's pride talking. It stemmed from his deep disdain of Zhuo Fan from the very start. He just couldn't let go of it. Or maybe his obsession with Shangguan Qingyang, who ended up getting close to Zhuo Fan, that he couldn't overcome in any case. While the entire event was made clear to any casual observer, he was still stuck in the past, blinded with his head stuck in the sand. The same guy he viewed as inferior, as a mere smudge towards his glorious future, ended up being an expert in deep disguise. He would never accept it and would do anything to justify this fact to himself, to the point of being incapable of thinking basic questions as to why Zhuo Fan could just strut in here. All that came out was vitriol and bloodlust. Sixth Elder, he is the reason why we lost so many people in the Flying Cloud Manor. He gave us a fake map. Sir has to grab him and avenge them all. Sixth Elder gave Zhuo Fan an icy look. He hardly talked with Zhuo Fan in the Jiyu household and knew how things transpired, thus labeling him as a double agent as well. Since he was too busy carving into Shangguan Yulin in here, he was not part of Zhuo Fan's enlightening and inexorable speech held outside. In short, he was oblivious of Zhuo Fan and the Shangguan clan's deal. He was now thinking of nothing else but catching this traitor and giving him a re-education. He wouldn't forget Sixth Elder hated his kind the most. He shot for Zhuo Fan, bearing his bloodthirsty palm on Zhuo Fan, to grab him. Late Genesis stage power slammed into Zhuo Fan and pinned him on the spot, yet it didn't seem to affect him, as if he chose to stay put. If that smile was anything to go by, Shangguan Yulin snickered, relishing his mortal enemy's plight. No matter how Sixth Elder was raging and his attack seemed deadly, it was only meant to seize and not kill. That's how you deal with spies. You capture them for interrogation, not kill them. Though that wasn't to say the process was pain-free. The grip on Zhuo Fan's shoulder would be so tight, all the bones would snap like twigs. Then there's the pain, followed by a world of hurt, as each day something new is done to you to relish newfound agony. Shangguan Yulin was actually looking forward to what came, snickering to himself as he pictured Zhuo Fan hanging from a rack with hooks in him. I'm the young master of Shangguan Clan. A traitor will be deformed, twisted, tormented under all the pain he's inflicted upon. To an outsider like you, that goes double. Let's see how long you last under Sixth Elder's deft hands. I bet you'll be far more miserable than me, but at least you'll put me at ease. Hi. Shangguan Yulin cackled in his mind, rapture clearly painted on his face, his eyes obsessed with turning those twisted thoughts into reality that he was already picturing Zhuo Fan bleeding. Even as the attack had yet to land, he perked his ears, ready to relish Zhuo Fan's shoulder crumble like glass, the symphony soothing his disturbed mind. I've waited days for this. There's no better joy out there. Sixth, stop. An aged hand came out of the darkness and grabbed Sixth Elder's cruel hand before it even reached its target. Sixth Elder started and found one of Shangguan Clan's 3 venerables next to him and the many other elders coming in. Sixth Elder shook. What? Mr. Gu is a guest and needs to be treated with respect. The venerable gave him a look and pulled Sixth Elder to the side to whisper in his ear. Sixth Elder jerked, bobbed his head and returned to Zhuo Fan with new eyes. I ask Mr. Gu's forgiveness for my earlier ignorant transgression. Dong. While the cave was awfully peaceful, the same didn't apply to Shangguan Yulin's mind, feeling like bombs went off constantly. Gone from his elated state of hoping to see Zhuo Fan suffer, Shangguan Yulin's mind was broken. What the hell? Why are the elders treating him like some prized pony? They weren't like this even around Uncle. There's no fault in ignorance. I may not be much, but at least I'm kind. Zhuo Fan never registered Shangguan Yulin's shocked eyes, closing in with his chest held high, putting on some mighty airs while taking a look around. My, what base chambers. There's not even a chair around. Since Mr. Gu says it must, then it has to have one. One elder shouted, Guard, get Mr. Gu a laurel chair. What do you mean we don't have one? Get clan heads from the meeting hall if you have to. Yes, sir. A reply came from outside, and in no time flat, a disciple brought the chair behind Shuofan for him to rest his laurels. But not before the thoughtful disciple gave it a good cleaning with his sleeve. Mr. Gu, please, hey. Since there isn't. Why bother? I'm not one to nitpick, ha ha ha. With a smug grin, Shuofan faked modesty as he made himself most comfortable in the prized chair, but this wasn't the end of it, not by far. Shuofan gave a disapproving look around, like something was missing, and coughed, catching his drift. One elder shouted, "Get a table and tea." Damn fools, are you blind? How could you forget about the rest when you brought the chair? Yes, elder. Two disciples were quick to arrive, gently placing a table next to Shuofan. The other carefully placed the tea for their prized guest, grinning from ear to ear. Shuofan leaned into the chair, the clan head's chair, like a boss. He then made a show of picking his cup and sipping once with one of the most exaggerated expressions of joy ever. This is the life. Shangguan Yulin, dangling from his pole, twitched, his broken heart now in pieces. His greatest hope these past torturous days was to see Shuofan go through the same agony. What the hell? Why is showing off? What's with the elders? Why are they serving him like their ancestor, if not better? Have you no dignity, old coots? Shangguan Yulin howled in his mind, but Shuofan's taunting face made him gnash his teeth in fury. Jiu Yifan, did heaven place you on this earth just so you can torture me? Ooh. Chapter 928, Leading. Chapter 928, Leading. Proofreader, Papatonks. With the fragrant tea safely in his belly, Shuofan casually held the cup with a relishing sigh as he smiled and gestured at Shangguan Yulin. In a damp and dark hole such as this, some hot tea feels like heaven. Ain't that so, guys? Ha ha ha. Yeah. Mr. Gu knows how to enjoy life, ha ha ha. The elders went into a constant praising spree, all while sporting wide smiles. Shuofan could pretty much say anything and they'd still accept it. Shangguan Yulin's face twitched from anguish. It cut so deep that death was starting to look oddly inviting. Then it dawned on him. Shuofan was putting this overblown display after all those days spent under the knife and now actually turned out to be the worst torture of his life. In the words of Confucius, with socialism, fear not scarcity but inequality, not poverty but instability. The reverse applied just as well. In these two's case, the pain was amplified greatly when one was having the time of his life. While if the other had suffered, then no matter the torture received, it would never strip away the joy he felt if he got to see the other suffer. This was divergence. This was human nature, but to a most ambitious young man that had struggled all his life, he could never bear to watch another enjoying the dreams he yearned for. Shuofan was basking in the elders' attention and praises, wallowing in more respect than a clan head would receive. What made it worse? It was none other than Shuofan who was reaping the rewards, the one guy he despised with all his being. It translated into more than just bruised ego for the young lad, it was crushed, along with his heart. Why? We're both spies for Shangguan Feiyun, so why do you hail him and not me? I'm still a young master of Shangguan Feiyun. He's just an outsider. Why are you treating him so? Shangguan Yulin's heart was consumed with jealousy, tinting his suffering in a harsher light. Shuofan's eyes shone. That ought to do for foreplay. He regarded the elders. Seniors, please give us the room. I wish to have a private word with my disciple. Would it be possible? Sure, we're here to fulfill all of Mr. Gu's requests, ha ha ha. The venerables saluted and led the men out, then we'll be taking our leave. Mr. Gu, if there's anything at all, just ask. The heavy stone door rumbled and shut. This dark cave. Shangguan Yulin felt numb. How are they the great elders of Shangguan Yulin? All I see is lap dogs with no dignity. The minute the door was shut, the elders' beaming smiles turned upside down, grief taking hold. Sixth elder taunted. Brothers, big and small, who knew you had such nasty sides to you, ha ha ha. Just don't. The punk wanted us to play along, that's the only reason we'd gone through such indignity. The elder who asked for a chair and table rolled his eyes, certain he'd never hear the end of this from his brothers since he hated this disgraceful crap the most. The others' teasing glances proved it. One venerable waved and became serious. That's enough banter. This is a crucial matter. Using an already compromised spy to send a message is dangerous enough and might lead to unforeseen mistakes. Understanding this is the most important. The boy is adept in mind games, and the faster we get our pawn, Shangguan Yulin, to fall in line the better. We'll lose everything if he unravels on his way there. Jiu Yifan is shrewd and daring, never leaving anything to chance. We've seen it for ourselves. How can he fail when he played Bailey Jingwei as well? Although, he did that from the shadows and held the advantage of being overlooked. Now that he's going against Bailey Jingwei in the open, with his son on the line, he's bound to be doubly careful. What's so bad about using some of our integrity in exchange for the soaring sword? Another venerable spoke up. The men nodded, no longer depressed by the demeaning act they were forced to perform. After the elders left, Zhuo Fan was left alone with Shangguan Yulin in the dark cave. He placed the cup down gently and stood. Aren't you curious about how they're hanging on my every word? Shangguan Yulin rolled his eyes. Screw you. Go ahead, you bastard, keep pretending till you get sick of it. You're a prisoner here, and so am I. We're both traitors to the clan, so you shouldn't hate me. I'll be honest, we're both the same. Zhuo Fan sighed, his eyes taking a forlorn tint. Out of consideration to young Sanzi, I only wanted to take Shangguan Qingyang back to the clan and then leave, but they just grabbed me after being found out. I'm just as trapped as you are at this point. Shangguan Yulin glared and mocked. Trapped? From this angle you're more like a king. All the elders are kissing your feet, almost throwing yanga at you and the clan head spot. What's there not to like about that? Clan head. Ha ha ha, I'm not their kin and have priors. My track record isn't exactly spotless. You think they'll put someone like me at the helm? Zhuo Fan raised an eyebrow. You're overthinking things. And besides, the only reason they show respect is so they can get the one thing they want the most. Shangguan Yulin gasped. Soaring sword. Yes, that thing. Zhuo Fan's eyes shone. I have possession of the soaring sword and they have to play ball, all while attempting to string me to let it slip where the divine sword is at. Even honey trap is considered. What? Slow your roll, they haven't cracked me yet. Shangguan Yulin tensed in reflex. Of the Shangguan clansmen coming to the central area, there was just one girl included. The honey trap could only mean. Shangguan Yulin's mind did not finish the thought as Zhuo Fan came to reassure him. Then he snickered. My nerves are of steel, though I don't think they'll last much longer. You know it too, that Yanga. Shut your mouth. You can't call her like that. Shangguan Yulin cursed. Zhuo Fan waved him off, having found his leverage on the punk, and went on the offensive. It's not my fault. Those guys keep getting us together. They promise that I just have to give them the soaring sword and I'll become their son-in-law, having all the power. You know I'm stalwart. The thought of my son in the hands of Shangguan Feiyun is what kept me from refusing for so long. I still wish to use the sword to get my son back. Off you go, then. Why the hell are you rambling about Yanga to me? Don't you think I'd have done it by now if I could? Dumbass. Would those bastards outside ever allow me to go through with it? Zhuo Fan sneered. The oldies were just outside, ears glued to the door and boiling mad. Bastards. He knows we're here listening yet has the nerve to call us names. Shangguan Feixiong and Shangguan Qingyang just came over and listened in. The minute Zhuo Fan's words about hooking them up were heard, Shangguan Qingyang went beet red, her eyes furious. Though for no particular reason, she had a bashful smile as well. She knew it was all part of Zhuo Fan's plan. Shangguan Yulin's brows shook at the mere mention of Shangguan Qingyang. Then what do you want? I'm under constant watch, but only kept here. I am confined to this cave like a prisoner. Zhuo Fan's eyes shone. That's why I need someone to send Flying Cloud Manor a message, to set up an exchange place. The minute I get a breather, I'll rush to get my son back. As for my trail, I'm sure the people of the manor are more than happy to settle them. It's simply borrowing strength. Shangguan Yulin stared hard at Zhuo Fan. Of course it is, using Flying Cloud Manor to help yourself get away. This, in turn, let him see Zhuo Fan's point and smirked. You mean to have me go? Exactly. I did say we're the same, you and I. We can't stay with the Shangguan clan and you need a new home, no? That makes you the only one I can trust since our goals align. Since we both want to leave, you won't sell me out. Grinning, Zhuo Fan said, since I have the soaring sword, Shangguan clan sees me as precious. They won't just let me go, but they're happy to fulfill all my wishes. I'll ask them to free you and then you can send my message. We'll work together so we'll both get what we want, right? Chapter 929. Take notes. Chapter 929. Take notes. Proofreader. Papatonks. Win-win. Shangguan Yulin squinted and mocked. Sounds too good to be true. You win, I win, everybody wins. But tell me this, why on earth should I help you? You said it yourself, everybody wins. Or do you plan on spending the rest of your life in Shangguan clan's torture chamber, spending every second of it in unadulterated agony? And Shangguan Yulin haughtily said, I'd willingly stay in the 9th circle of hell so long as you're a couple circles above. I may know only pain, but seeing you right there beside me with a wretched look will be a sobering experience. Ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan sighed. Do you hate me that much? We don't have anything against each other. I only fooled you a few times now. Getting you to knock your head on the floor, carved degenerate demon on your chest, made you shout master this and master that, had you grovel at my feet, but only for a couple of times, then. Was that all? I honestly can't recall. Meh, that should be it, right? You want more? Isn't that goddamn enough? His face twitched with every sore spot that Zhuo Fan thoroughly skewered, bringing his anger to an all-time high. Jiyu Yifan, you're nothing but a foul rat. I come from a respected house, the Shangguan clan. Do you really think that having toyed, humiliated, and tortured me so many times does not warrant my burning hatred for you? I rather choose death before Dishina. The world isn't big enough for the both of us. I'll be sure to return every indignity you subjected to me 1,000 times over, and I'll start with your precious son, ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan just stared as Shangguan Yulin cackled. The elders eavesdropping shook their heads. One venerable sighed, I never knew Shangguan Yulin knows only cruelty. Such luck we managed to see his true colors in time. He would have only grown to become a disease upon the clan once he takes the seat, just as wretched as Shangguan Feiyun. Yeah. Shangguan Feixiong sighed, feeling regret. Yulin was a good seed among the disciples, only to find out he had a twisted mind. One venerable was not so quick to agree, although Shangguan Yulin is vile, he has his reasons. It was that endless humiliation that brought him so low. Tell me, would any of you be able to take the high road and have a clear conscience when Jiyu Yifan toyed with you? That had them all second-guessing their rash nods. Ha ha ha, maybe we couldn't. This just goes to show what a real player this guy is. Shangguan Qingyang giggled and Shangguan Feixiong glared. A man is never to be demeaned. Dignity is most important to a practitioner. Jiyu Yifan is even more twisted, having humiliated and played Shangguan Yulin like a fiddle. So why are you laughing? Shangguan Qingyang covered her mouth before any laughter slipped again. She knew this wasn't right, but just picturing Shangguan Yulin banging his head on the ground before Zhuo Fan's feet was most hilarious. Has her proper and handsome cousin ever gone through such low times? Mr. Jiyu is such a bad guy. Her mind was saying something while her curving lips betrayed her true feelings. Shangguan Feixiong sighed and shook his head. So you won't help me? Zhuo Fan asked earnestly after he waited for Shangguan Yulin's cackle to die out, though the guy didn't know when to quit. Help you? Maybe in another life, ha ha ha. Even as I'll be cooked alive, I'd still laugh just thinking of the grief of losing your son, ha ha ha. Such pain is definitely there. Zhuo Fan sighed but then smiled, though it's bound to last 5 years, 100 tops. With our long lives, it's like a drop in the bucket. It'll pass anyway. Having descendants and spending time with them will be sure to numb the pain. Shangguan Yulin shook. Time with descendants? Well, you can't expect me never to move on. His only a son. Zhuo Fan put on an evil smirk. Speaking of, the chance of a house filled with children is right now knocking on my door. Your uncle and elders are begging me to take the apple of their eyes, all for a measly soaring sword. So you can keep your help and I just have to accept the loss of a son to move on and make some more. I'll go to Yanga right now, get the buns in the oven so they can't weasel out. It'll make giving the soaring sword all the more a sound decision. Your uncle can't have his little girl turn a widow so fast either. As for you, my good disciple, whether stuck in hell or pushing through it, remains to be seen if you'll see me wallow in misery over the loss of my son or bask in the laughter of my kin, ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan walked to the door. Having finished his piece, Shangguan Yulin was left stumped. How could I forget? He doesn't actually need to get his son, not when there's another choice with an endless future waiting. His son might die, but he'll have a pretty wife and be surrounded by kids. And I, nothing more than a patsy, fated to die either way. Seeing him smile from hell will only pour acid on my wounds. How can I have such rotten luck? Any choice will get me killed, while his choices all promise a nice and cozy future. And by not saving his poor son, he'd become Shangguan clan's son-in-law, rising higher. It was something this young master with an if you're there to suffer along mentality could not accept, so Shangguan Yulin cried out, "Wait, back up. I agree. How can I not? All I'm asking is that you keep your distance from Yanga." Zhuo Fan paused and looked back with a devious smile, finally fell for it. Bastard. Amazing. A venerable praised, the kid's mind games are ridiculously good, toying with Yulin's feelings and thoughts. He has the other's state of mind under control, ergo his desires. What do you guys think now of the previous indignity? It was because of that little show we put on that Shangguan Yulin believes we value the soaring sword so much that we would listen to Jiyu Yifan. Especially about using Yanga as leverage. That hit him right where it hurt. They all bobbed their heads like wise men, with another venerable turning to Shangguan Feixiong. Feixiong, take notes, this is the kind of mentality you should have as a clan head, as the leader of Eastern Land. Me, learn from him? Shangguan Feixiong went red in the face. Jiyu Yifan is just a junior. And, the way I see it, you're the youth in his 20s here, with how naive you are. While he's the real monster living through ages with his cunningness. Smiling, the venerable said, "Don't you see? Even old guys like us are learning from him." The venerable pointed, and Shangguan Feixiong was shocked to see his oldies taking out jade slips and recording. Shangguan Feixiong's face twitched. That is called taking notes. Shangguan Feixiong was this close to spewing blood from the shock. These millennia-old geezers were as shameless as rash teenagers. Where's your self-respect? Shangguan Qingyang was the only one angry, stomping away through them. Don't just write everything. It's nothing but empty word. Stop at once. Everyone gave her odd looks. What's up, Yanga? Shangguan Feixiong sighed and shook his head. Yanga, are you angry at him for his untrue words and sulling your name? Or is it at him for not following through with it? Ha ha ha. Ignorant of all the ruckus outside, Zhuo Fan flicked his hand and the chains were off Shangguan Yulin. Then he threw him on the ground. Hey, what's that for? I agreed, didn't I? Quiet. Zhuo Fan shouted for him to stop talking. You did agree, but there's nothing trustworthy about you. I'll have to leave my mark on you again in case you get any ideas along the way. Just you try. Zhuo Fan chopped at his neck and the guy was out like a light. He placed a hand on his back and his right eye flashed with the black thunder flame, surging as it followed the hand and into Shangguan Yulin. Chapter 930, Bloodworms. Chapter 930, Bloodworms. Proofreader, Papatonks. So let me get this straight. Jiyu Yifan wants to make a deal with me, the soaring sword for his son. But since Shangguan clan has him confined, he sent you as messenger. 3 days later, at the Flying Cloud Manor, in the dazzling hall to be precise, Bailey Jingwei was in the main chair, sipping his tea and muttering. His eyes shone while staring forward. Shangguan Feiyun and Dan Qingshun at his sides, a shivering, distraught and familiar guy, also covered with wounds, was fighting to keep his composure as he just stood there. He kept on shivering and looking worried as he bobbed his head. He really asked me to pass this message. Here's a jade slip he personally made if you don't believe me. It also holds his soul signature. Shangguan Yulin presented it with shaky hands and Bailey Jingwei casually took it. He nodded to Shangguan Feiyun. It's Jiyu Yifan's all right. He wants us to meet up 100 miles from here on Flourishing Mountain. TCH, what an utter waste of time. Back when he was here, he said he wanted to give the divine sword for his kid, but then he just ran off. Now he makes the request himself? Humph, I can't tell if he's brilliant or boneheaded. Shangguan Feiyun read the jade slip as well and just threw it to Dan Qingshan. It looked as if Shuo Fan was giving up with this message, but only Bailey Jingwei could read between the lines. You can't say that, not when Jiu Yifan is so sharp. A man of character doesn't take risks. With how we had them surrounded before, if the exchange took place, he'd never be at ease. He wouldn't accept it even if I came to another place. But then he comes back with this proposal, which means he made himself an exit again. Quite sensible. Now he must be thinking how to taunt both sides into fighting so he could slip away. Humph, as if that'll work. Hasn't he had enough toying with me and now he comes back for more? Shangguan Feiyun mocked, his eyes spewing flames of rage. The humiliation of being made to play catch was still fresh in his mind. Bailey Jingwei had an explanation for that too, his eyes shining. Sword King Feiyun, don't let emotions cloud your judgment. We're after the Shangguan clan in the end. Now we just have to get the soaring sword, and there's no harm if he uses us once more. Not since it'll work in our favor, ha ha ha. Only. Bailey Jingwei's collected smile showed his decision was made, but then his sharp eyes landed on Shangguan Yulin below, making him reel under the intense gaze. There's something I can't figure out, young Master Shangguan. Sure, asking for the Shangguan clan to release you sounds fair, but there's only bad blood between you two. Not even desperate times warrant him trustworthy. Does he actually trust you so much to send his message? This involves his son, after all. Shangguan Yulin grimaced, bowing before them with a distraught face. Prime Minister is correct, the guy never trusted me. That's why he left something in my body. Look. Shangguan Yulin showed his arm. The trio's eyes twitched at once, their heartbeat spiking. Shangguan Yulin's arm had something foul and vile wiggling under his skin, like hundreds of worms fighting to come out. Shangguan Feiyun yanked his wrist and checked with his yuan qi, but the discovery had him gasping. Damn, you're a nest for worms now? Shangguan Feiyun's face shook hard, pointing at him. This guy has thousands of bloody worms burrowed inside him that just won't die. Not even my yuan qi had any effect on them. This is freaky. The other two regarded him gravely. Once the disgusting arm was back under wraps, Shangguan Yulin's pale face looked astonished. Prime Minister, now you see why he let me come? He knocked me out throughout the process, only for me to wake up and realize my body was swarming with these putrid maggots. He told me they're bloodworms, like marrow-burrowing maggots. Only he or my body's destruction will release me of these things. But giving up my body will mean a decrease in cultivation and halt in progress. He only had me deliver a message, something I found wholly beneath the worth of ruining my future. Now if you agree, I still have to get back with the answer. He only gave me 10 days before the worms act up and feast on my blood essence. That'll ruin my body. Bailey Jingwei nodded at Shangguan Yulin's whining like an old biddy, his doubts removed and now believing in the letter. Who'd have thought an alchemist like Jiu Yifan would be capable of such nasty business? Shangguan Feiyun huffed. Bailey Jingwei nodded. All men of renown have walked over thousands of corpses to get where they are since time immemorial. A true man knows when to act and be decisive. It'd be so much easier to handle Jiu Yifan if he were kinder. At least we didn't need to be so wary of him. Young Master Yulin, there's just something that evades my understanding. I hope you can clear it up for me. Bailey Jingwei began. Since Shangguan clan let you go, they must have gotten ready for it. I'm sorry to say, but they switched places the moment you left, since no one trusts you and all. So then, how are you going to get back to Jiu Yifan? Shangguan Yulin bowed. Prime Minister, I cannot find him, but we have a meeting spot where he can find me. He just has to pick up the reply. I'll leave him there and he'll release control of the bloodworms. As for removing them, that will have to wait for after the exchange takes place. That's quite cautious of him, unafraid you might botch it and even giving you a sliver of hope so you'd follow through. A truly pragmatic man who knows when to act in his benefit. His methods are terribly effective. Bailey Jingwei turned to his left and right. Sword Kings, do you have any questions? Shangguan Feiyun and Dan Qingshan shook their heads, speaking at once. Prime Minister's decision is enough. We have nothing to add. Great, that settles it then. Regardless of the soaring sword's location and whether Jiu Yifan's intentions are real in this exchange, I still want to try, ha ha ha. Bailey Jingwei's eyes shone as he laughed. He took out a jade slip and put something in it before giving it to Shangguan Yulin. Young master, here's my reply. Take it to Gu Yifan. I accept his offer and we'll meet in half a month. Shangguan Yulin gave a deep bow as he took it, though he looked hesitant standing in the same spot. Bailey Jingwei asked, aren't you on the clock? What's holding you back from finishing your mission? Prime Minister, well, Gu Yifan has another matter for sending me. Its conclusion will decide whether Prime Minister's reply feels honest to him or not, if he would come or not. And what's that? Bailey Jingwei followed Shangguan Yulin began, Prime Minister, I would like to see if his son is safe. Absurd. A felon like him will get his son only when he gives the soaring sword. Why on earth will I reveal his location to that bastard beforehand? You take me for a 3-year-old, using slick words to get me to spill his location so you could bust him out? Shangguan Feiyun snapped in rage. Shangguan Yulin sighed, Uncle Feiyun, please don't be angry with me. I don't want to see the brat either. But that's what Gu Yifan said. If his son is dead, then the soaring sword exchange will go to the dogs. Goddamn, who are you calling a dog? No, uncle, that's not me, but Gu Yifan's words. Shangguan Feiyun exploded in rage and power, making Shangguan Yulin shudder and turn frantic in explaining himself. Curse you, Gu Yifan. You have me go send a message and even mock the other. Now my head is on the line while you're just laid back home. The only reason I'm doing this job for you is because of those damn bloodworms. All he could do now was brace. Uncle, please calm down. It's quite normal for a father to miss his son after such a long time and be concerned about him. Ha ha ha. Shangguan Feiyun sighed and nodded. Bailey Jingwei's eyes shone, never leaving Shangguan Yulin out of sight as his lips curled dangerously. Chapter 931, Hanging by a Thread. Chapter 931, Hanging by a Thread. Proofreader, Papa Tonks. Then you can go and tell him his son is safe and sound, treated like a prince. He can make the exchange without worry. As for seeing him, ha ha ha, I find it unnecessary. Bailey Jingwei showed a crafty smile as he sipped tea. Shangguan Feiyun mocked. Yep, so go ahead and tell him that. It's not like he has some divine eye that can tell him if you have seen the kid or not. I wish it were that simple. Shangguan Yulin sighed in distress. You know as well the punk is lively as a monkey. He won't be fooled with just that. He told me he and his son had a signal. I need to see the child in person and relay this signal. When I reply, he'll only believe if I come with the matching signal, or he'd believe his son is dead and the deal is off. He'll just give the sword to Shangguan Yulin and throw his lot with them. Shangguan Feiyun cried out, there's something like that. You just have to see the brat. It seems like it. Shangguan Yulin had no intention of seeing Jiyu Santong if he could help it, which he couldn't. He was always scared here, in the flying cloud manner, and the faster he left, the better. There was no way he could feel safe, not when Shangguan Feiyun was right there flexing his power. Shangguan Feiyun frowned and turned to Bailey Jingwei, but the man was deep in thought. Shangguan Yulin's heart sank, having a really bad feeling. Why, you didn't actually kill him, did you? Don't you want the soaring sword? If Gu Yifan doesn't get confirmation, then there's no deal. You won't get the sword and my body will be ruined. How could you just kill him? You could at least wait to get the divine sword. Prime Minister, you're a man of wisdom, so how? Silence. Shangguan Feiyun glared. Enough of your chattering. He's not dead. Oh, so he's alive. Then why are you so sensitive to the topic? Just let me see the brat and don't make it harder on me. I almost had a heart attack thinking I'd see a corpse. Sighing, Shangguan Yulin unclenched, regarding them with renewed hope and waiting for an answer. Bailey Jingwei glanced over and nodded. Fine, I'll take you to the boy. Though it's up to luck if you can squeeze even a word out of him. What does that mean? What did you do? Did you beat him to an inch of his life and now he can't even speak? Shangguan Yulin cried out, seeing their eyes had him trembling in fear. These savages won't spare even a child. How brutal. Not like Shangguan Yulin was any better. At the very least he would not start tormenting women and children. He was the young master of a renowned clan and had to act like it, knowing how far to take his cruelty. But these men. Shangguan Feiyun snapped at him. What's with that look? Are you thinking we did this to him? You call a monster like that a child? That's This way, young Master Shangguan. Bailey Jingwei interrupted, standing up and leading the way with the Sword Kings by his side. Shangguan Yulin scratched his head as he went along the four passed through many places before arriving at a rock garden. Shangguan Feiyun made a sign and the space warped to reveal a dark hole. The four went down the dark abyss, then lights came to life. As they descended, 2 rows of Soul Harmony and Genesis stage guards welcomed them, standing there like statues, 50 in total. Their auras had Shangguan Yulin scared silly. Flying Cloud Manor's secret jail is under such a tight guard. Yet all this secret place had locked up was none other than a child. This went to show just how wary Bailey Jingwei and the Sword Kings were of him. Or maybe Jiu Yifan. The four reached the end, but it was beyond the gloomy and damp hell Shangguan Yulin pictured. Instead he saw silken lights, a carved table and a granite chair, quite fancy. The bed in particular caught eyes with its carved and intricate jade supports buffed to a shine. You call this a jail cell? More like a king's chambers. Shangguan Feiyun patted his shoulder and pointed at the pale and resting child on the bed. Here's the brat you wanted to see. Does it look like I touched him? His Jiu Yifan's son? Shangguan Yulin cheered. He's still alive. Young Sanzi. In the Flying Cloud City, in a dark corner bordering the manor, a sitting shadow made signs as it cried out. He slipped into Flying Cloud City, right behind Shangguan Yulin, and lay in ambush out of anyone's perception. The swarming maggots in Shangguan Yulin's belly withdrew to reveal a scarlet image of an infant. The idea behind dumping so many bloodworms into Shangguan Yulin was not to threaten him into submission. He had other ways to do that. The bloodworms worked to those below the ethereal stage since it tortured one's body. But it hardly posed a threat to a cultivator's soul. The other would just have to take the consequence of ruining his body, and you had no way of using him after Zhuo Fan stuffed him with bloodworms to hide the blood infant sent. Zhuo Fan had him knocked unconscious to blind him of the process and just what else was hidden in there. Blood infant was one, bloodworms were another, while also sealing the guy's senses. So when Shangguan Feiyun came to check, he'd only see the bloodworms, unaware of the blood infant lurking beneath. It was the perfect way to get Shangguan Yulin to help him find young Sanzi. All of it was set up to find young Sanzi as soon as possible. Any rescue attempt could only start when the target's location was confirmed. Zhuo Fan's brow shook, seeing through blood infant's eyes the frail child behind the silk covers. His fists clenched, his heart shuddered in pain, but calm soon returned. It was not the time for action, but patience. Shangguan Yulin approached Jiu Santong's side and checked his vitals. He turned to Shangguan Feiyun in shock. How is he? He's weakened by severe blood loss. Shangguan Feiyun rolled his eyes. Shangguan Yulin checked again and noticed Jiu Santong's damaged arm. Even with the bandages to staunch the bleeding, blood was seeping still, following the arm and dripping into a bowl. Startled, Shangguan Yulin asked, "Are you letting out blood?" "Why? Bullshit." Shangguan Feiyun cursed, "I'm no saint, but never this vile as to bleed out a child. I never once tortured him and even used my personal training room to heal him. And you're asking if I bled him? This is your personal room. What else, a prison?" Shangguan Yulin huffed and glared at him, turning to Jiu Santong. "The kid is weird. I planned on using him to threaten that Jiu guy after my blade hurt him, so I had my alchemists heal him. But the odd thing is that no medicine can halt the bleeding. That's why I was hesitating about letting you see him. While not dead, he's not long for this world. It's unclear if he can get us the sword as he is." Shangguan Yulin's brow shook. So that's what all that stalling was about. The brat is hanging by a thread. He might not even live past a fortnight to see the exchange. Jiu Yifan will never go with the damn thing if he knew, and will throw his lot with Shangguan clan, raising a family, but without his son. Zhuo Fan was overwhelmed at the truth about his condition, worried and flustered. "Young Sanzi can't heal? Why?" Chapter 932, Weird Signal. Chapter 932, Weird Signal. Proofreader, Papatonks. Checking Jiu Santong's pulse, Bailey Jingwei turned to the others with a shake of his head. No change. His wound didn't mend at all and his blood kept flowing. He'll soon die like this. Sword King Feiyun, you really went all out back then. How's it my fault? Shangguan Feiyun sighed. I've just been wounded myself and the rage made it hard to control my power. But I didn't try to kill him either, trying to heal him afterward. How was I to know his weird? Any other guy would be on their feet right about now. But look at him, he's only getting worse. Shangguan Feiyun was perplexed at this outcome. Bailey Jingwei shook his head and smiled. Ha ha ha, never mind. What's done is done. The issue now is Jiyu Yifan wanting his son's response for the deal. How is he going to reply like this? Maybe, young Master Shangguan, will you give it a try? Maybe a father's love is so great that it may rouse the son. Bailey Jingwei chuckled. I guess I'll give it a go. Shangguan Yulin had no hesitation, not when this involved his future. He had to get an answer out of the brat one way or another. The other option would be Jiyu Yifan thinking his son was gone and the deal was off, and so was his body. His cultivation would drop, and the worst part was the punk was going to become Shangguan clan's son-in-law. Yanga, my dear Yanga, I'll never let that bastard lay a hand on you. Howling inside to psych himself up, Shangguan Yulin went to Jiyu Santong and showed a more hideous grimace than when crying as he cooed, Young Sanzi, wake up, your father sent me. Come on, wake up. Young Sanzi was as still as a corpse, blood dripping down his arm. Shangguan Yulin was panicking, sweat trickling down forehead. Zhuo Fan's brow shook. He was in the dark about young Sanzi's critical condition and had to wait until he saved the child before addressing it. But from how things looked, his life was on the line. Zhuo Fan gnashed his teeth and his fists tensed, only to slump back in helplessness. Goddamn brat, be a good sport and wake the hell up. Tell me the signal you share with your old man before I get serious. Since the soft approach was a bust, Shangguan Yulin flung his finger in Jiyu Santong's face and cussed, I don't give a rat's ass about your rotten dad or you dying, but my life's on the line here. If you and your old man are going to risk my life, then, brat, see how I'll squeeze the last drops of your miserable life. Awkward tilde. Young Sanzi lay there as if he had left this world, calmly resting without a twitch. Shangguan Yulin winced and dismay struck his heart. Here he was thinking the biggest problem was Bailey Jingwei and the other two making it harder on him, only to find out that it was this snot-nosed antique of a brat that wouldn't play ball. If this brat doesn't wake up, everyone here will lose. The great young master Shangguan Yulin in particular. What did he do to suffer so? Each time the factions clashed it was always Flying Cloud Manor and Jiyu Yifan, not Shangguan clan and the manor. Well, he wasn't completely unrelated since last time he was with the Shangguan clan. But he was totally tangential with Jiyu Yifan. Why does this punk and Bailey Jingwei's deal have to drag me down as well? Their ruined deal had nothing to do with him. I sure didn't botch it. It's this Jiyu brat who won't wake up. And the one at fault for that was Shangguan Feiyun for being so cruel. None of this was his fault, he was innocent. Why then does your ruined deal end with me losing the most? Why am I the one to always take the fall? Shangguan Yulin's heart was filled with complaints after complaints, having a worse fate than anyone in the world. While others might die out of the blue, he was worked to the bone by both sides, and what did he get? Suffering and death. And for what? Heavens above, why the cold shoulder, why the cruel fate? Shangguan Yulin's heart was bleeding, finding the world's misfortune dumped on his wee shoulders. Bailey Jingwei mocked him, Young Master Yulin, I thought Jiyu Yifan sent you to give a message to his son. Do so and maybe the strong bond between a father and his son will bring about the signal. Maybe even wake him up. Give it a go, ha ha ha. Shaking all over, Shangguan Yulin turned solemn and nodded with hope. Fine, anything's better than dying. He lay next to young Sanzi on the bed, whispering sweet nothings. Young Sanzi, your dad asked me to tell you about your agreement. Do you remember? Whenever you're in danger, I'll always come save you. A gentleman can't forget his promise. Is that what a father tells his son? Why does it feel like a talk of equals? Shangguan Feiyun was puzzled. Bailey Jingwei was the same, but his mind was working on a solution. Then a faint whisper resounded, a gentleman never forgets his promise. Ha ha ha. Startled, the men looked to find the weak Jiyu Santong open his eyes and let out a faint laughter. He actually woke up. What's up with that signal anyway? Shangguan Feiyun shouted in astonishment. Bailey Jingwei chuckled and shook his head. These two are a pair of oddballs. I heard that some fathers and sons see each other as equals, ignoring outdated traditions. This must be the case as well. A gentleman's promise, ha ha ha. The others nodded, but Shangguan Yulin was not one to give a flying hoot about how much of a weirdo the GU members were. He only wanted the deal to take place so he could keep his own skin. Quite literally, Shangguan Yulin perked up. Brat, it's damn time you wake up. Hurry up and tell me your answer to the signal. I'll be off telling him the minute you do. Degenerate demon, why the hell would I tell it to you? Gu Santong's angelic face took on a savage smile. Pale as he was, he nevertheless succeeded in getting across the dripping disdain and scorn he had for Shangguan Yulin, cutting the man deep. For God's sake, even the Gu brat is mocking me. How is that normal? Crunching his teeth, Shangguan Yulin clenched and spat. Screw you, brat. Hurry up and give me the signal like a good kid so your dad can give the sword for your petty life. I win, you win, everybody wins. Cross me and I'll be sure to make both your lives a living hell. Degenerate demon, why the hell would I tell it to you? Gu Santong rolled his eyes SSS tilde. Shangguan Yulin was fuming now. Brat, didn't I just say this is for your own sake? Staying here any longer will only get you killed. Your dad just has to give the sword and only then you'll survive. Talk, what's the signal? Degenerate demon, why the hell would I tell it to you? Screw you. Why can't a rotten kid fricking understand reason? Shangguan Yulin was on the verge of having a meltdown as he held his head, his knees softened and kneeled at Gu Santong's side, pleading, Child, I'm here to help your father get you back. I've said my signal, so can't you do the same? We're on the same side. Give me your reply and everyone will be happy. Gu Santong gave him a long look, then sported a wicked smile. Degenerate demon, why the hell would I tell it to you? Shangguan Yulin's face twitched hard, his body shook, and his mouth bled. Turned out that Gu Santong's repeated onslaught had popped a vein in him. Young Master Yulin, pardon the interruption. Bailey Jingwei intervened. Is it possible that the reply is degenerate demon? Why the hell would I tell it to you? Shangguan Yulin's eyes blanked out, dumbstruck. Then he turned to Gu Santong's cute and mocking smile. The wounded brat couldn't be more obvious in his scorn. I already told you the signal, but who was the deaf one here? Shangguan Yulin's face twitched, his heart cracking like glass, tears seeping from the seams. These two are toying with me, they're getting their kicks until I die. Chapter 933, Boom. Chapter 933, Boom. Proofreader, Papatonks. Gu Yifan and his son sure know how to have fun. It's such a weird signal that it makes no damn sense. Shangguan Feiyun shook his head at the twitching, crushed and seething Shangguan Yulin. Bailey Jingwei was just as clueless, so he just shook away the thoughts. It's how oddities are, or maybe it's just a way to obfuscate others from randomly guessing the signal. There's no point reading into it. At least we now know his response and can make the deal. Young Master Shangguan, you should be going. Weren't you on the clock? Bailey Jingwei smiled at the depressed Shangguan Yulin with the intention of kicking him out. Shangguan Yulin got his meaning of sealing the deal fast, so he stood up and bowed to them. Then I shall go to Gu Yifan with the reply. I shall be the first to congratulate Prime Minister getting the soaring sword from the punk. Why thank you, young master. Bailey Jingwei smiled, as did the other two. While this guy had lost all his value, he was still smooth. Such flattery was neither forced nor overblown, said just right to make others feel good. Maybe he's still of some use after all, ha ha ha. With that done, they all went out of the cave, giving no attention to the weakened Gu Santong on the bed. Gu Santong eyed them and smiled. He let out a breath and closed his eyes, though muttering, Dad's coming to save me, ha ha ha. But did he get what I meant? Thump tilde. Bailey Jingwei and the two sword kings led Shangguan Yulin outside, being nice and friendly with him, like he was a real guest of honor. He was cautious as he walked, the rows of powerful guards giving him a bad feeling every time their aura flared. Staying just one extra second in this accursed place felt as if his life would be over. The peculiar thing was, the closer he was to the exit, the more pronounced it was. Tilde. Shangguan Yulin shivered out of nowhere and halted. They had only reached half point of the tunnel and still had a way to go. Shangguan Feiyun paused, giving him an odd look. What is it? Why did you stop? Shangguan Yulin just stood there, frozen in panic with horror in his eyes. He did all he could to move his jaw, but it felt he had lost control. Shangguan Feiyun scanned him since he was acting even weirder. What's he playing at? Shangguan Yulin gave them some hopeful looks, trying to convey something impossible in a gloomy place such as this, and the others walked over just as Shangguan Yulin was feeling terror. 100 miles away, in a dark corner outside the manor, someone was using those same eyes as he waited for the target to approach. Squinting, Zhuo Fan was like a patient hunter on the prowl. He made a sign to nail Shangguan Yulin on the spot, while using the blood infant's eyes to see Shangguan Yulin taking slow steps towards him. The closer it got, the colder his gaze was. Boom. The instant Shangguan Feiyun reached Shangguan Yulin, Zhuo Fan's hands shifted. Hutilda. Shangguan Feiyun's senses flared with grave danger coming from within Shangguan Yulin, something he hadn't felt in ages, though sensing did not equal reacting. Shangguan Yulin's sudden explosion as a soul harmony expert swept everything in its path, most of it focused on Shangguan Feiyun in front, though a peak Genesis stage expert was far from defenseless. As one of the very best in this world, it would bring about endless disgrace from being even hurt by a soul harmony stage self-destruction on the instant the explosion was triggered. Shangguan Feiyun's strong Yuan Qi was unleashed to shield him from the blast and leave him untouched. It did not go as well for the guards though. Sure, they copied him to resist the blast, but the worst off among them were the soul harmony stage guards. In a narrow place like this, with no place to hide, they could only rely on their Yuan Qi. Survival and death came to one simple fact, whether they were just a bit stronger than the suicide bomber or weaker. Some would come out with heavy injuries while some never got up again. In but a blink, of the 50 guards in the tunnel, a dozen fell victims, and that was ignoring the many others who were now too weak to fight. It went to show just how devastating a blowout of a soul harmony stage cultivator could be. It had to be, or no one would be doing it, but this was just the start. As everyone rejoiced the worst had passed, black thunder flames shot from the center of the blast. It was Zhuo Fan's third trump card he stashed in Shangguan Yulin, the apocalyptic thunderflame. Not even the likes of Sword King Feiyun saw this one coming. It was common knowledge that a self-detonation used one's Yuan Qi, something a Genesis stage expert had to spare just based on the difference in stages, but when the black thunderflame was included, one with the power of total destruction, it was fundamentally a universal killer, all ending up suffering the same miserable fate until its power ran out like a claw from hell. The black thunderflame shot like lightning in all directions. Anything it touched, be it flesh or hard bedrock, all burned, wiped out of existence. The Genesis stage guards hardly registered when the black thunderflame touched their Yuan Qi shields, and only heard as it sizzled and was eaten away. The flames then crept on them, swallowing each one as it devoured. It was so deadly, there was no cry released as their souls got submerged in this terrifying black thunderflame, and so, the rest of the guards, 30 plus in number, all met their end in some unknown tunnel. Even the two Sword Kings were panicking around such deadly force. The worst off was Shangguan Feiyun, who was closest, now surrounded by this dark burning killer. His only saving grace was the strong Yuan Qi that kept the flames at bay, away from his body, though this was not meant to last. He felt as his Yuan Qi was sapped every moment around this thunder flame. He had to leave at once. SSS tilde. The crackling of the flames reached their ears, adding to the fear this black fire incited. Even in the likes of a Sword King, Shangguan Feiyun was not alone in this peril, with Bailey Jingwei and Dancing Shen being in danger as well. Bailey Jingwei was only in the ethereal stage and could not muster a token of resistance against the Hell's Beckoning. It was all thanks to Dancing Shen for surviving, as he used his Yuan Qi to protect them both. Judging by the tense brow and shocked eyes, it was not easy at all. He was also fearful of this strange black fire. That boy's eerie flame has grown to such an extent already. The more I feel it, the more terrible it becomes. Dancing Shen's heart tensed as he watched the ravenous black flames. It felt like just yesterday Zhuo Fan used just a finger-sized dark flame in the double dragon gathering to harm Yi Lin despite him being under exalted Heirant's protection. This earned his title as best disciple in Western lands. That tiny flame now became a sea of fire, swallowing anything in its path. The boy has become terrifying in just a few years. Dancing Shen took a deep breath and sighed. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.